All right, we are live. Welcome to a very special show for All Politics are Local. We This is the first Friday of the month, and in the first Friday of the month, it is the Payne Report, right? Uh, with Congressman Donald Payne, and as you know, he passed away on April 24th, and we are all mourning, but the entire community, is also here to pay him tribute. So we're going to have a series of special guests on tonight, just to talk about the congressman and what he has done and the things that he's done and how he's moved through legislation, through just being a good human being, and how he's able to effectuate and move. Ed and I were at the funeral services yesterday and were moved by them as well, just in terms of not just the people that came out, but the way in which they came out and they said the same things about how he is, how how humble and focused he was on building relationships that would make the community better with the work that he did in Congress. So, welcome to All Politics are Local. My name is Jonathan Alston. We have the creator of All Politics are Local, Ed Riley, and we have one of the founders of All Politics are Local, the co-founder of All Politics are Local, Bashir Akinyele, here with us. Hey, Bashir, man, how are you?
Hey, brother. I'm doing great, man, but this is a very somber day,
Right.
somber week, I should say. We lost our brother, the late U.S. Congressman Donald Payne Jr. So, I'm just in a different type of mood right now, brother. You know,
Right.
Usually I come on all positive, local, the number one,
Right.
hip hop radio show in the land, but I don't know. My spirit is a little down right now, brother. You know, we
Right, because
we
we have, like, he was on the show. He would do this the first Friday of every month for what? 12 years?
12 years, man.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And with
and it
these
was
conversations over and over. So
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
So what?
absolutely. And Ed had the genius and the vision to want to connect the community to what was happening on the congressional floor, right at the U.S. Capitol, and he was like, the right man for the job is U.S. Congressman Donald Payne Jr. You know, and we worked to get him on the show. We worked hard to get him on the show, and he agreed. He liked our pitch, and he agreed to be the host of the Payne Report. Yeah,
Mhm.
and it just you know it's just a incredible loss. Incredible
What
loss.
are some of the things that we had so many different conversations with him over the years, man.
Yeah.
What are some of the ones that stand out to you?
you know, I'm a community organizer and community activist, right? And when
One of the founders of the Newark Anti-Violence Coalition.
absolutely, but some years ago, wow, when Brother Payne was a up and coming elected official, I I used to go and see him at the city council meetings, and or go to where he was at, anywhere he was at, to make him accountable to the people. Oh man,
Oh, so you used to protest him, right?
yes.
Right, you used to show up out with with signs.
Exactly, but it wasn't it wasn't, I didn't call him a handkerchief head or a coon or an Uncle Tom or anything like that. It's just to make sure that elected officials like him were, making sure that they were, you know, serving the people. And he used to talk about that. Ed remembers that he every time he came on the show, he's like, "Brother, I remember you back in the day. You used to come at me, you used to protest me. And I said, it was no disrespect. It was no disrespect. None. It's just
and he welcomed it, right? Like he
he
came on the
absolutely
show
welcomed it. He
because he
did.
welcomed the conversation, right?
Absolutely, he did.
The thing that we tried to do and the thing that he embraced was
Right.
having community activists talk to actual politicians who are affecting policy.
Absolutely, absolutely. He welcomed that. He welcomed, civic discourse.
Yep.
He was big on that. And many times, after the rallies and all that, we talk afterwards, and
So what you say is you protest them and then you go out and hang out and talk.
absolutely, yeah, and that's the thing he remembered about me the most. He said, "Brother Bashir, you used to come and used to protest, bring the people down there." And he said, but he said, I respected that. I respected you for that, and that is a. I mean, when he went on to the ancestor realm, in the cultural, Afrocentric cultural way, we say Ibaye Ashe. It's two Yoruba words. Ibaye means blessings to the ancestors, and Ashe means so be it, or it is so. Our brother passed on to the ancestor realm, so we say Ibaye Ashe. We pour libation for our new ancestor, the late U.S. Congressman Donald Payne Jr. But that's the thing. I mean, brother John and brother E, that's the thing that I'm literally like meditating on. Just thinking about how, we had a brother that was elected into office, on a local level, on a national level, but he welcomed activists to challenge him to make sure that he did the right thing for the people. I gotta say that, And the other challenge we had, and John, you remember this, the other challenges that we had, it was still, man, when Congressman Payne was when he had to actually run for office, because he got in. I believe he got in. Oh man, you got to help me out. He got in with the.
You talking about after his father passed?
His father had passed, and he had filled his father's seat, but he had to run for that seat. And so, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, Ron Rice, who was running against him. Remember, former council.
Right. Absolutely. Right.
He had at that time he had another senator. Remember the sister who was the senator at the time, John?
Neil Gill.
Neil Gill. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, but that's what I'm talking about. I'm saying that he had run for office, and we had to. We wanted to do a joint venture with Rutgers University Newark campus and our radio show, All Positive Local Radio Show, to hold a congressional debate, and it was a struggle. It was a struggle. All right, trying to make that happen. All right.
Yeah.
You think about the logistics of that, and we're dealing with different people at different institutions, but the thing is, and
not on the candidates.
Right. I was going to say the thing that was really cool is all of the candidates were all in, right? Mm-hmm. All of the candidates were like debate, talk about it,
absolutely,
all that other stuff. Yes. They were, and again, this goes back to the way in which local politicians, when it's done right? Yes. How local politicians are accessible to their constituents, mm-hmm. accessible to the people, and Payne was always incredibly accessible, and wanted the conversation. He wanted the conflict. Like he would say the same. He would say the same thing about you, Bashir, that he does about Zaid, right?
Yes.
He would be like, you're giving me a hard time before, right? Like, I'm not, down enough for you, right? And
that's right.
And I remember the last time he ran, when he was challenged from the left, and his response was, "How much further left can you go than me?" Because he voted the same way AOC did, like 97% of the time.
That's right.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so, like on a lot of and he brought money home to the district. that the district needed, and he started pushing the projects that, like the thing that everyone should see in terms of the way that the congressional delegation spoke about him is that he was a prolific legislator who talked to everybody and made
Yeah,
everybody feel
yeah,
important to be able to get stuff done.
yeah,
So there were some comments where people were like, "Oh, they needed to be more
yeah,
in your face." And a lot of times when people are thinking about leadership and elected leadership, they think that they need to be aggressive and they need to be, offensive, right, to their quote enemies, right? But I think that one of the things that he embodied is that no, you just really need to get things done for your constituents first and
absolutely.
foremost,
Yeah,
and that takes a lot of conversations that people won't see, right?
absolutely, absolutely, man. I mean, yeah, I mean, he, I gotta say this, John and E. Many of us, who fight, social justice activists, right, fighters for our community, fighters for the empowerment of our community. Many times we have to go to government. We have to go to elected officials to get some things done for our community. And like I said, it's hard to get somebody into office who kind of will lend their ear to you and their resources, their position to help you out, man. And Congressman Payne was definitely one of them. He was one of them, you know. But on a lighter note, what Brother Payne loved to talk about? He loved to talk about music. He loved house
That's
music,
true.
He
you
did.
know.
Yeah.
And he talked about the legendary house clubs like the Garage. He talked
Yeah.
about the legendary house DJ Larry Levan. Um, all my house heads, they know who Larry Levan. He's like, he's like one of the goats, greatest of all time. House DJs. He's one of the founders of house music. And Brother Payne loved to talk about going to the Garage and listening to Larry Levan. Remember John, we would talk about music
Mhm.
and the clubs like Garage Zanzibar and
Mhm.
I mean for hours. You remember
Right,
that? For hours.
right.
I'm talking about after the show ended.
Yeah.
He would do his pain report. He would sit in the other sessions, and then after the show, we would talk about music. And sometimes DJ Rhino would be playing some of the house, some serious house music that was played by DJ Larry Levan. He'd be like, "Oh, you taking me back? You taking
Yep.
me back, DJ Rhino? You taking me back, man, to the Garage, baby?" You
Absolutely.
know?
Well, welcome, Mayor, to
Yes.
All Politics So Local,
Yeah,
and
Peace. Hotel.
thank you
yeah.
for coming in to this tribute, man. I love the speech that you made at the funeral yesterday.
Oh yeah, thank you, brother. Sorry, I'm late. I had to grab my son from karate school. So
No,
Okay.
good.
it was taking too long. But good. Yeah.
No, that we appreciate it, man. Absolutely, absolutely. And I don't think that many people know that how much politicians work together for the city.
Yeah.
And what are some of the things that your memories of, like, you talked about the Payne family, and I thought that was moving, right? You talked about growing up, and I thought that was moving. Um, how did that make it easier to work together on the bigger issues, right? Like, you're in the city, he's in Congress. Um, what are some of the memories that were most significant to you?
Well, I mean, it's important. One that we from the same area, but your fathers and families are connected. That helps. Like whenever, I think it helped in the long run when people try to create wedges that you always find a way back. Because of those things, is always a larger issue uh, that keeps you working together. And some of the fundamental values of helping our community is there. So it always leaves the door open for us to get back to what we're supposed to be doing. That's for sure. There were some times we found ourselves at odds politically because of alliances with certain people, because of whether it's the party or the county stuff or whatever it was that kept us from, being together all the time, And one of his relatives texted me after it was over and was like, they appreciated the fact that I don't know what that is. Appreciated the fact that I said that I was glad to work with him in that last election. That's where I should have been. That's where we should have always been. He said, I appreciate that because that's something that they talked about all of the time, that how we were supposed to be together. But it is what it is, man. And most of the things that we needed, I could always count on Chapter or Congressman Payne to go get for us in the Congress, whether it be around this bridge that we're trying to build or the money for infrastructure, any other kind of money for infrastructure or jobs or, the parks or, just the tunnel that's being built now, the Gateway Tunnel, all of those things. He was very instrumental in helping us get, you can count on his vote, at least that, and his voice around certain things. He wasn't always the loudest, the most boisterous, on it. If you needed an extra vote, if you needed somebody to speak on something, he would do that, and he would fight to secure the revenue that we needed. So that's really what their job is, what's important for us, right?
Yeah.
Not to just be down there making speeches, but also bring home the bacon.
Well, and he brought home billions, right? Like he brought home is it an exaggeration to say that he brought home billions to the city and the region in terms of infrastructure and those things?
Yeah, definitely to the region, that's for sure. This whole area, whatever is built infrastructure wise in Newark helps the region anyway. People don't really understand that, and I think folks downplay it a lot. But and I said it on this thing before. This is the door in the nation, and when he helps Port Newark, or when he helps, Amtrak or New Jersey Transit or the Gateway Tunnel, that's you're helping a whole bunch of people, millions of people actually, and you're talking about a lot of jobs and construction and development that takes place as a result of those investments. So it's tremendous stuff that happens that people just don't know about, because a lot of folks look at those guys and they look at the speeches they make on the floor, stuff they do, that get on Instagram or YouTube or Facebook, that go viral. But the bread and butter issues don't usually make it to social media or the press.
So Mayor, what could we say, for most people, they know him as Congressman Payne. Of course, like us, we know him as Congressman Payne, but he was more than that, right? So he was our brother, right? What could we say, man, if for young people that are listening and, for people who, tune into the Payne Report, who check them out here for 12 years. We've talked about all kind of things. Last year was just talking about one of his favorite subjects would always be about talking about, all the clubs he frequented, not only in Newark, but the clubs he frequented in New York. But, you lived in the South Ward. He lived in the South Ward. What does that mean
Life.
for, for brothers?
Yeah, he lived in South Ward all it. Yeah, in life, and ultimately, his father. He finished his father. He continued his father's legacy. This whole relationship to the continent is incredibly important. A lot of folks don't pay attention to that. He does. He did because his father did. He lifted it up. Always shined a light on some of the issues that were happening on the continent itself, in the countries on the continent. He highlighted those things and spoke about those things, and which is important because a lot of people did not do that, and still don't. So, that's significant, which is why he always had a considerable considerate number of, folks from the continent or Africans that are in America now who support the congressman, because of that, because he's in Liberia, in Ghana, in the Congo, in South Africa. And that's like from, carried on from his dad, I mean, his father and I went to Barringer together. So, I mean, his father and my father went to Barringer together, went to high school and ran track together, and so the relationships in the families is long, and as I said in the funeral, that when Newark was, claiming its voice and stepping up, there were very few people who were willing to do the stuff that needed to be done, There was very few people on an elected side, on an appointed side, and so forth and so on. Donald Payne had ran against Peter Rodino prior to this and lost, prior to when he won and lost. Right. So he was challenging him. He just didn't win until 1988, 89.
Wow.
Yeah. It's wild because there was something that Congressman Payne said that he did, a vote he took, not when he was congressman, but when he was in the city council, that I think is important. It was a vote on water. And there was this single vote cast and if he had cast the other way, Newark's water would have been privatized, right? Apparently, he prides himself on being the deciding vote and Newark keeping control of its water.
No, I remember that time. I had a big thing in the South Ward, a big meeting in the South Ward, and we came out deep. A lot of wards didn't do it. We came out deep in the South. The congressman was an at-large person, and I was pushing back against the privatization of the water, and he definitely cast that ballot to make sure that it did not happen. So even though he came in on the Booker slate, he kept a little independence when it came back to that South Ward and what we needed to do in our conversations, right? So there's a lot of things people don't understand, between the intricacies of our relationship, with the Paynes and all of those things. When Donald Payne Sr., when the South Ward Democrats were being challenged, they was trying to take the party from him. I went and got Pat Council. We went door to door and started recruiting people and getting them to fill those seats, so the organization could stay under the hands of Don Payne Sr. Like all of those things, like we were on the ground. And when I was in college, I was an activist. I was doing that stuff, and Don Payne Jr. was here, organizing with the Democratic Party. So we had a different trajectory in that sense, but wound up in the same place. And I just think it informs. It gives me a chance to talk to him at them times about my perspective on a lot of these things. And sometimes we didn't agree, but I at least had an opportunity to talk to him, and get his perspective and respect his position. But it never was negative,
And I think that part gets lost, right? Because apparently, what came out yesterday is that it seemed like everyone had the same experience with Congressman Payne at all levels of his career. They talked, right?
Yeah, never had a negative experience with him. I mean, in the end, when he was in his last election, he was concerned about the young lady up there. I think she's from Montclair, who was running against him. I basically told him that at the end of the day, nobody knows this woman, and I'll help you, but I really don't think you need no help. But I'm gonna be out there, and we're gonna do. I put my name on his flyers, his mailer. Middy and them did some work for him, in the community. But that was the first time we really put our operations together outside of his dad.
What's interesting, man. I remember him saying to me one time when we were talking about organizing and putting together the Payne report for him and with him. He would always say, he would always tell me offline, he'd say, Ed, I'm not a Raz, right? I said, what do you mean by that? He
That's
said,
right.
man, I'm not as elegant of a speaker as Raz. I said, I know that, I think he always admired, your ability, man, to be able to, speak to the people. And he was concerned about that, of course, because we were doing, the mayor's forum, and he wanted to make sure he was always doing a good of a job as you were. And so I think that from that standpoint, he always admired your ability, man, to be able to speak the way.
I would tell him the work he's doing is beneficial. Everybody got their lane. That's not the lane that he's in. Like when I have trouble with Amtrak, he's one of the ranking members on the Transportation Infrastructure Committee. He could go call him. That's important to me. And it's important to a lot of people who don't know it, right? Who don't understand that why that's important, but it is important, right? When we want to get Amtrak, who don't act right all the time, to do what they need to do for our residents here, and when things are happening, that they make sure they include us. That's important. Or Port Newark, or the light rail, the stop on Freeland Heights and Avenue, the businesses we have in Terminal A, all of those things are a result of our relationship of being able to talk to him and him reiterating the things that we say, and he says it again. And when we have a united front, it never fails.
Yeah,
that's what people have to understand. It's really the united front. When you present a united front, it's hard for us to lose. We just have a difficult time putting up a united front most of the time.
No doubt, absolutely.
Yeah, because people get in the middle of that.
Absolutely,
they get in the middle of it to make sure it's not a united front.
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. My brother, I'm glad that we have you still a part of All Politics Local radio show, because you're enlightening many of us on the intricacies of politics. And when Ed was creating the show, he said he wanted to make sure that, and John and myself, when we were creating the show, we wanted to make sure we had civic discourse on politics, on the science of politics, because a lot of us do not know. We're very surface on a lot of things, Mr. Mayor. We don't understand these things. You mentioned the rail, you mentioned Port Newark. Many people behind the scenes don't understand. I mean, the masses of our people, particularly our people, I'm talking about Black folk, right, don't understand what, how you have to work, to get these things, to get resources in our community, to make sure that we're included in some of these resources. So, the federal folks on the federal level working with folks on the local level. And it's important that we have folk in there like you or Brother Payne, in there to make these things happen, because I'm telling you, Mr. Mayor, and again, this because you were an activist, out there. A lot of miseducation when it comes to political science.
Oh yeah, I mean that's also purposefully orchestrated as well. But at the end of the day, I mean, I know that the relationships that people have with each other that we have are key, especially Black elected officials. That's why I mentioned that up there, how difficult it is to be an elected official and be Black at the same time, with all of those people in there, all of those House of Representatives who came down, all those African-American House of Representatives from the Congressional Black Caucus, the largest number that has ever done that, they said, which is a testament in and of itself, with all the other elected officials that are sitting in that room, trying to figure out their way, thinking that they have to forego who they are and what they believe and what they think or who they should be around, trying to press their wheat in the wine press, right? Trying to do that when you don't have to, right? When all of us, if we stay together, that we have more leverage together than we do apart, right?
Yeah.
And that it's important for you to say what it is that you want and what you need. And if we say it collectively, we have a greater opportunity to get what we need, not just for us, but for our people. You know, I said, go out there and save your people, right? You can do that. It's possible to do those things if we did it together.
No doubt. That's on point, brother. That's strong right there. Hotep. I love it.
Well, man, listen, man, we definitely don't want to keep you long, man. We appreciate you giving us 15 minutes of your time, man. But let me ask you a question, man, as you leave, brother. How would you want young people, particularly in our city, man, to remember Donald Payne Jr.? How would you want them to remember?
One, I think legacy is important. And our folks, we need to understand history and legacy, that we have an attachment to that. And sometimes we don't want that attachment, or we don't know it. We think that we were created and born on Clinton Avenue all our lives, on Chancellor Avenue, that we originated there. That legacy is important, that our families ventured up here. The Payne families ventured up here. The Baraka families ventured up here. We had to, you know, and the trajectories of their relationship may not be the same, but it's similar. They were in the same spaces, the same circles, and wound up doing different but similar things. It's important for us to understand that. Like, we have to have that history, and we need to understand what that history is like and what it means to be the first African-American congressman in the entire state of New Jersey, right? And how long that took for it to take place. You know, even we were the majority in the city for at least 20 years. Still, before that happened. Right? So Newark was the majority of us in the city in 1966.
That's
before
right.
the Newark Rebellion, right?
That's right.
So it took 20 years, even after we had the majority, to do that thing. So just struggling with our people and getting them to understand where we are and who we are and what needs to be done. So when people have these fights and go crazy now and how hard it is, how difficult it is, you're talking about in the middle of us seeking and grabbing and forging ahead for power, we still had a difficult time in that period. And so we can't be afraid or confused about the difficulties that lie in front of us now. We just have to learn from the stuff that took place before us, not make those mistakes, and work harder around our unity. We have to work harder around our unity, because people will say, oh, everybody voted for Donald Payne, the black people came together. Well, that's just not true.
That's right. Teach.
It's not true. As a matter of fact, Ralph Grant ran against him when he was running the time that he won. Right. So there was other black people in that race. It wasn't no all black people come together thing. We had a difficult, we'll never unite. We had a difficult time then.
That's right.
I mean, none of this stuff has been a walk in the park for us. And we just need to learn from that, understand what legacy is, uphold your legacy. You have to talk about the legacies that took place in our community and build off of that. There's nothing wrong with that. A lot of times when you're young, you want to reject that and say, oh, I don't want to do what they did. I'm not a part of that. That's really dumb to do that. You have to be a part of a long line of legacy. You don't have to do the same things they did. In fact, you shouldn't do the same things that they did. But you should be building on what they did. But at the end of the day, you have to have respect for your foundation.
Go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
You have to have respect for your foundation and building off of legacies that these people, they struggled. I mean, and here we are as a result of that. So appreciate it.
No doubt.
Yeah, thank you, my brother. We appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule, my brother, to come on and help us, celebrate the congressman. We're gonna miss him here, man.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Ashe. Ibai Ashe.
This is the All Politics Are Local. We are celebrating the life and the legacy of our friend, right? Our friend, Congressman Donald Payne. Every first Friday was the Payne Report, right? And we are sad, right? Like right now, and we want to have a really great celebration of his life. LeRoy Jones, welcome to All Politics Are Local. And very much enjoyed your speech yesterday, and thank you for that. What was your memory of what is a good solid memory of Donald Payne that you have that kind of embodies the type of service he does and the type of work that you do, right? Like you are dealing with the entire state Democratic Party in terms of politics, getting things done, etc. Well, first, thank you for coming on the show. Uh,
Hey,
Absolutely honored to have you, man. Honored to have you again. You've been a supporter of ours since the start of our show. So thank you
And
for
and
coming on
and
again.
and the chairman reminded me, brother, he was riding with us, man, from the moment we did that debate with the congressman, man. He was there.
yeah,
So,
you remember
you know,
that?
yeah.
Jonathan was a little nervous that day because it went
I
fresh out the
was,
box.
I was, I was. That was
The
right.
debate teaching legend was nervous.
Oh,
Yes, he was.
absolutely,
Hey,
absolutely.
That's all right. He did
we
a great
we
job,
all
though. He did.
we
He
all
held it
started
down.
from somewhere, right?
Yeah, he
Yeah.
held it
Yep. No,
down.
that was
Yeah,
that was trying to do a different debate format that would really force them to be substantive, right? I wanted
yes, for
like they're
sure.
going for a congressional debate, and you're right on that, man. I was like, let's do. I wanted to do something quality and different, and that would really honor the people and the position that they were in. So yeah, I was a little nervous, see if it was gonna work.
Yeah, but it's all good, man. Look at where you are today, man. Look at where how just all politics is local just has exploded, and becomes a force for information to all of us. So let me just say thank you for that, and thank you for just including me in today's celebration of our Congressman Donald Payne Jr.
Yes,
Well,
absolutely.
no, thank you, man. So tell us, right, man? Like, so you were not always the state chairman of the
No.
Democratic Party. So tell us about a little early on with you and the congressman, maybe even before he was the congressman. Some of the stuff that stands out in your relationship with Donald Payne and some of the memories that you have.
Yeah, so real simple. It our relationship began to gel in a real way back in 1988. And in 1988, if you guys recall, was the year that his dad won the general election and became the first African American congressman to represent New Jersey. And the distinction there for me was this: in 1988 was the same year that I was elected to the board of freeholders, now commissioners. So I was on that same uh, ticket with Congressman Payne. So as he made history, I was a small part of that history, and that's where the relationship between myself and I can't, we all know him. I
Did he freeze? Was it,
Hi, I think you might have frozen.
I
Uh,
thought
Chairman Jones, I think you might have
he was just getting into it. He's
frozen.
getting a good roll too.
Oh, true, exactly. But yeah, I wanted to make sure it wasn't me. Like, 'cause it's funny when anytime anyone freezes, we're always like, wait, am I frozen
Me
or
too.
is anyone else frozen? All right, so if you can hear me, going out and coming back in might be better, right? Like I'm gonna uh, if you because right now you're frozen if you can hear me. So if you go out and come back in, we might be able to hear you better.
frozen.
Okay, now you're not frozen anymore.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
have you.
Maybe I should change, because I'm on my phone. I should probably jump on my laptop, which is,
Okay.
So just hold on. Give me a minute to just jump on my laptop, and then I'll be right back with you guys.
All right.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
You know,
So
what
I think
I wanted to say before the mayor left, and Baba Zaid taught us this from our great brother, late revolutionary brother Mulcahy Cabral. Tell no lies, claim no easy victories. And the mayor was going, he was breaking that down, that we weren't always together. We struggled. We struggled hard to establish some sort of unity in our community.
I thought
politics.
I thought what was interesting, last year when he said we had we had all of those numbers in Newark, right? All those years before
the early 60s.
Yeah,
that's true. That is
and that was really because we weren't organized. Zaid, was that what it was?
Yeah, I would say some of that, but we also were dealing with an oppressive gangsters local order.
That's right.
Can't miss that. We had
that accentuated this unity.
Real important.
Yeah. But I'm saying that promoted the disunity, right, of our people. I'm talking about working behind the scenes and working out in the open, and they still at it to this very day. It's still there, but I mean, it was serious back then because Amiri and Baba, you already know, it's Amiri. After the rebellion, Amiri came on the scene, and his Amina and many brothers and sisters came on the scene and committed to organizing Black people for Black political power, and that scared the hell out of the establishment. I mean, they were putting Kawita in the streets. They were scared as hell, and they worked hard to.
Was not a nonviolent movement.
Right.
Yeah, you were dealing with folks who had no problems using force of arms legally and extrajudicially.
Right.
That required an armed response.
Right.
And that we cannot, dismiss the significance of self-determination, self-defense, and self-respect. The trinity of Black power.
Absolutely.
The thing that I've always loved most about this show is the chance to actually have an understanding of history, right? So so thank you everybody who's watching. Thank you, Chris Randall, Trina Anderson, Principal Kafele, and Missy Cooper. So thank you all for watching. Always appreciate you and everybody who's commenting.
And my sister Trina, John, you forgot.
Trina, okay. And Ms. Anderson as well. So thank you all for tuning in, watching, commenting. If you're watching, just drop a comment in. And if you are on our YouTube page, please subscribe. So thank you, Chairman Jones. Welcome back.
So he was talking about how he connected with the Congressman. It was in '88, you said, right?
Right.
That was in 1988. And his dad was running for Congress at that time. That's the first time that he was elected, and it was quite the experience, because it was a history-making victory for the Congressman, being the first African American to represent New Jersey in the United States Congress, and I was a small part of that, and that's where I got to know Chop from that point on, and we were good friends, personal friends, family friends. So I suspended the formality yesterday when I spoke at the service, and I want to just keep it real. We all called him Choppy. We in the hood we always break it down even further, so it just became simply Chop, and Chop and I developed that relationship way back then. It was he wasn't even elected to office at that time. He was probably still working at his uncle's company. Then he went on to to be work on the New Jersey Highway Authority, and then later on at the Essex County Commission, and then began his his career in elected office. But it goes back there, and from that time, he was always a gentleman, always witty, had a lot a lot of fun with him. He was just an all-round good guy. One guy that a guy that just left us way too soon.
Yeah, you made that. What you just said, LeRoy, should not be dismissed. Where he was in those working spaces, doing those things before he got elected, and how he would later wind up being such a pivotal player for those same resources in Congress.
For sure. And look, when he decided to run for Congress, which was difficult because he lost his dad at that point in time, and everybody was kind of on him. I remember that it's so clearly. I remember seeing him outside the Robert Treat Hotel, and he was faced with trying to make a decision to run for the office, laying his father to rest. And people were on him. What are you going to do? What are you going to do, Chop? What are you going to do? And finally, he made that decision. Which he would ultimately leave the presidency of the Newark City Council, and later on, at the same time, he was you could do dual office holding at that time, and he was on the freeholder board, and as a result of being elected to Congress, he left those two. But look, he was the same dude from day one when I met him. Never ever changed. Always, never complained about anything. Even in his, as his health challenges in the later years, got what the dude never complained.
Yeah,
never complained at all.
Yeah.
If you remember, last election cycle where he was up for re-election, he had a primary, and he was. It was somewhat of a challenge because the person, was well funded from out of state, and making noise, very early. And Chop was not a guy that raised a whole bunch of money, right? And he was always honest about that. Look, I don't raise a whole bunch of money, I just want to do, the work of the people. So he was now faced with having to raise quickly, a significant amount of money to fend off a challenge that looked a little significant.
Right.
And this is what I remember. There was one time where he was kind of slowing down a little bit. And because the pace was, but the pace gets pretty hectic. And he said to me, and I'm like on him, like, Chop, you gotta really put some more into this. You gotta put some more into this. And he said to me at that time, he said, LeRoy, if you did what I have to go through, which is dialysis, and get up and do what I do now, you show me somebody that can, even if my pace is slow, even show me somebody that can keep up with the pace that I'm on, going through the same thing. And at that point, I said to Chop, I never understood that, and I lost sight of that. So my bad, Chop. And I said, after him telling me that and what he goes through or went through, he simply became my hero, man. Mm-hmm. My hero, because he was a brother that was dealing with, the ills of diabetes, fighting to make sure that, the insulin was affordable to people that were dealing with the same things that he was dealing with, fighting to make sure that, premature amputation, was not, a consideration for people that, just went to a doctor and said, "Oh, you got diabetes, we got to cut it off."
Right.
Yep.
Right. he lived, he lived so other people can live,
Yep.
and fought so other people can live. And these are people that are typically marginalized because our community, is unfortunately entrenched with people that don't have adequate health care, that that have food insecurities and deficiencies, and as a result suffer from the impact of diabetes.
Yeah.
So when you get a person in the United States Congress that's living in that space, that gets up every day after going through dialysis 3 times a week and fighting and going to work and living in that space, he's got to be everybody's hero.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's deep.
Absolutely.
So
Right.
LeRoy, you just said something, man, that was just so profound.
Yes, sir.
Just in terms of what you said, man, that he lived so other people could live. Wow, man. And I think you on point, man, because when he first brought Dr. Federetti on, man, and just so that people would have that kind of knowledge, that kind of information, I thought was so impactful. I mean, because some of the and what he said is that he said he thought that particularly the folks in our community should have access to the same kind of health care that he had as a congressman.
Yes.
And I thought that was deep, man.
Yeah, no, it was, and he would say that all the time.
Yep, he said it on the show all the
away
time.
from that. He didn't shy away from that. So look, he was courageous in a very quiet way.
That's right.
I used to get, we all used to get on him, and I see Eric's in the waiting room, because a lot of times we didn't know, what, Chop was doing. We didn't know what the congressman was, in terms of all the, the depth and impactful legislation that he was moving down there. Because he wasn't one of those guys that every time you turn around to do something, you got to press send on a press release. Or he wasn't one of those guys that, that chased, TV cameras, all through the, the halls of Congress. He just simply did the work in a quiet, graceful, dignified way.
Yep.
We're gonna miss that brother.
And
it is a void that is, that is going to be sore, and it's going to be difficult to, to replace somebody that lived in that space.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
You just heard the mayor say a moment ago, when I said to him, when we were talking, when after he had won the seat for Congress, and we were talking to him about doing the Payne report, 2 things. One is that, and I just shared this with the mayor before you, and he told me, he said, I'm not Raz, right? He said, I don't speak as well as Raz. He said, you still want to do this show? I said, and the mayor just said, I don't know if you heard the mayor say this before you, LeRoy, but he said that, he said, everybody got their lane, right?
Yeah.
And public speaking ain't his lane, but his lane was getting shit done for us. And that's what he was doing, right? He was getting it done. And you heard the mayor say, when he needed to get something done, he knew he could call and he could talk to his brother, like, oh, man, sure. I need to get this done. I need your help on this. And LeRoy, what that means. And Eric, you do too. You know what it means when we're in community, when we really brothers, and when you can pick up the phone and call your brother and you say, hey man, this is what's happening on Clinton Avenue, brother. This is what's happening in Newark. That shit means something to us, man.
For sure.
I think that is when when the mayor said he understood, when he used that term, Zaid, just now, when he said us having a black community front was important, right?
Sure.
It's important to us. And that's why for you, right, what that means to us with you being chairman, that means so much to us as brothers and sisters who know but to be able to call you and say, man, come on the show and let's talk to our people so we can help them, right? And you now can break down what Congressman not only meant to us, but what happens when we lose that as a community.
Yeah.
LeRoy
take a long time to replace him. Look, the person that that ultimately takes that seat will obviously be a student of him, because it's got to be a Newark seat, it's got to be an African American seat, and it's got to be someone that that understands the plight of our community, and are ready and able to address the issues that confront our community. It's funny that Chop always thought that I'm not the best speaker, this, that, and the other. You know what? He may not have been a prolific speaker, but when he talked about something, you heard it, you understood it, and it came across clearly in plain and simple language. So it's about being effective when you speak about something, because that's when people hear you. And they heard him when he did, when he talked about the things that were important to the district and how he was going to try to remedy the ills that we face in in our 10th congressional district.
Eric,
Amaku said something that was pretty profound. The problem is that we defined people by the flowery speech instead of the gardens they grow, and he definitely grew gardens. He also was working on the speaking. Like, his speaking he felt a lot more comfortable speaking in later years than he did earlier, because he was doing those 1-minute speeches. He would show off. Yeah. He would ask us to run them on here, right?
Yeah, he would.
And I would see it, and sometimes, like, especially in the last few years, I'd see it on CNN, right, just giving interviews. But normally he didn't do interviews, but he would do interviews on things that he thought were important, right? But it was never for show. It was always like, this is more important. Right.
For sure. And he had the record for those 1-minute speeches in Congress. I mean, he staked out the number one position in the House of Representatives. It was row 1, seat 1. Y'all heard that yesterday. And I remember, like, every time that there was a State of the Union address, when the president addressed the nation, he and I would text back and forth. Sometimes I would get him on the phone and say, stop, man, that tie ain't working. Stop, man, open your eyes, man. The camera's on.
I think we all probably text the hell out of him, when he was on the floor, man. Hey, Eric, you wanted to add something before LeRoy? We have to let him go.
No, I just wanted to say LeRoy is exactly right. LeRoy, he's humble as well. He served with my father in the state assembly, and the thing about our community is that it's generational. We're we all come from the community, and what we learn from the elders from that generation, that civil rights generation of the 50s and 60s, was to be active, right? I mean, all of us that are of our generation, we understood the assignment, right? And we understood that we had to be active, knew that one day, those of us that grew up in that environment of running around, putting flyers on cars and working for campaigns when we were young kids, and, with my uncle and my father being active, we kind of didn't have a choice. I mean, I talked about at the funeral, we would play a lot and all that, but it was always in between on Sundays, put the flyers on the cars before church lets out. Let's go to this event. Let's go to that event. Let's go to this march, that march. So, and then coming up in the youth and government program, we learned a lot and watched a lot of people, a lot of other people in the community, not just elected officials, like everyday people that were community activists that were standing right beside the people that were elected to make things better for everybody. It's, that's saying all politics are local, and what the name of the show is, that's real talk. We're trying to make the block better. We're trying to make the neighborhood better because we live here. And so it's our responsibility. You know, when you get that responsibility and people trust you with their vote and their voice, you know, Chop was about making sure he lived up to that responsibility to everybody. And people talk about he was all humble and worried about speaking publicly, but when you spoke to him one-on-one, nobody had a problem getting his point.
Yeah.
And he was a humble guy and a sincere guy, and that's why people in the street liked him. Because he wasn't about like LeRoy said, like you guys said, he wasn't about the cameras and all that.
Yeah.
When it got down to it, he was about being in the street and let people on the street know that he was working for them.
That's right.
Well, you know, Leroy, I told you what he told me, man, when he came on the show, and you know, you would come on off and on. He told me, he said, "Stay in touch with Leroy for me, man." You know, I said, "All right, I got you." And you know, Leroy, that's why I hit you up indiscriminately. I'd be like, "Leroy, where you at? You coming on?" You know, because he would always say, "Hey, man, just stay in touch with Leroy for me." He got
and it was Chop all along. I thought it was Bashir that was looking out for me, but
wow, that's deep, brother Chairman. That's deep. You know, you my brother, man. We tight like that.
Yeah.
All right.
Now, one thing
I think that what's important, man, is that, you know, the one thing we want to try and do, man, is never let people forget, you know, not only who he was as a congressman, but more importantly, who he was to our community. And it was important to him, I think, that, you know, people understood that he was touchable, right?
Yeah.
Relatable. And you know, and I'm gonna miss him, right? But I'm never gonna let people forget him here, right?
Yeah,
So
I
think that's
we appreciate that, man. We
but
appreciate
before you leave, I know you're getting ready to leave, but before you leave, especially in the spirit, we talked about him being nice, a wonderful person, a person who builds community, but he was also a fierce competitor. There's one story that I want, right? When he was running for, because he talks about the Jay-Z song Streets is Watching when he was running for council, right?
That was the song.
And right, that was the song. But also in that first run for Congress, right? There were a lot of people in that field. I dare say perceptually, he was an underdog. He won in a blowout. As people who were behind the scenes during that time, right? What happened, right? Like I always want to know, like everybody was like, oh, it's going to be close, but it was a blowout. It wasn't close. He won like by 10,000 votes or something like that. Everyone thought it was going to be closer than it was. Wasn't close. It was like Streets is Watching. It was like he was a fierce competitor as well. Can you speak to how that happened? How, because we talked about his last race, but let's talk about this first one.
So he did everything that he was asked to do. He never questioned it. You know, he understood that he was a candidate. He understood that you know, those you know, that were in the room were the operatives. They understood, you know, we understood the data. I happened to be one of those. You know, Eric was there. You know, Eric's dad was there. You know, a number of us, and you know, and that you know, that was the difference between you know, a student of politics, a coachable individual, a person that you know, that walked till he, you know, till he dropped, you know, who you know, took the opportunity to raise the necessary money, participated in every debate that there was. There was nothing that he was asked to do that he questioned. You know, he was, you know, and it's just like, you know, having a you know, a team, you know, in organized sports. You know, you have your go-to players, and in this particular case, you know, he was the only player. And when the coaches asked him, you know, told him, okay, this is the play, he ran the play. He didn't ask any questions, and that was the difference between, you know, his victory with his you know, tenacious ability to understand you know, those coachable moments and get the job done. Not everybody has a candidate like that. You know, and he's almost a dream candidate that you know, that pays attention to the, you know, to the facts, pays attention to the data, and he delivers, you know, with a you know, a physical tenacity even with the health challenges that he had. In the first one, it wasn't as critical as it was in the last one, but but still in all, he was one of the purest candidates that I've ever worked with.
Wow. Wow. Hey, LeRoy, before we let you go and bring Pat on, we got to ask you, my brother, what same question we asked the mayor before he left. What do you think that young people should remember most about our brother? What, Congressman Payne? What do you think?
So, one of the things that that I mentioned yesterday, that stands out to me, and I don't want to get preachy, because Pat's on, but it is Proverbs 15:33. Honor before honor is humility, and Chop was humble before he was honorable. And that's what young folks, should understand. It's a mental discipline. It's a respect. It's being able to listen and learn, and and taking a step back and humbling yourself, to the teachings of whatever path in life you want to take, whatever discipline or vocation that you want to, explore, whatever profession that's out there. It is about being humble enough to sit back and avail yourself, to a teaching and a coaching that will give you the tools and skill sets in life to move in the direction that you'd like to. That was what he exemplified. That's what he was from day one, to that magnificent send-off yesterday. And and that was just a send-off, which was done, in a spectacular way. Eric, who was one of the eulogists, and you'll hear from him in a second, was excellent that day because he spoke from the heart and he spoke from a relationship. But those, that humility is what sets people apart and gives you the opportunity to absorb and fill your cup with knowledge that will make your soul and your institutional being a better person going forward in life.
Well, LeRoy, we want to thank you, my brother. We appreciate you taking some time.
Thank you, brother Chair. Thank you, brother Chair.
Appreciate you guys. Appreciate y'all.
Stay strong, my brother. Stay strong.
Jonathan, Bashir, if Trina's on here, give Trina a shout.
Yes.
I can shout Trina out, right?
Yes.
And
yes.
So shout out Land.
You guys you're about to be enlightened by some giants, Eric and Pat Council, who I got mad respect for. So enjoy the rest of the show. Hey, Ed, don't call me occasionally, man. Just
hey, LeRoy, we proud of you, man. We love you, brother.
Absolutely.
Love y'all more, man.
All right,
man. Peace
All right,
out.
Hotep.
All right, beloved.
Hotep.
Oh, that was
What's
powerful.
good, Pat?
Brother, my brother from another mother, my brother, my comrade, our big brother, South Ward Councilman, Pat Council in the building. Man, it's good to see you, brother.
Always good to be amongst the brethren, man.
No doubt, absolutely.
Powerful thing to be amongst the brothers.
Absolutely.
Good being around you, man. And one thing I love about this show is this history, right? A lot of people just don't know relationships and they don't know history.
That's right.
And you actually go back with you look young, you look really young, right?
Baby face.
But you actually go back with the congressman a long way before he was a congressman, before he was a council person or a freeholder, right? And you were very much involved, I hear, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but in some of the earlier campaigns. Does that mean just be like everybody in the South Ward knows each other, or is there some history behind it? Can you give us some history?
No, that's absolutely true, man. I mean, we go a long way back. In the South Ward, there was a time where folks wanted to come and take over the, South Ward Democratic Party that, his dad helped to organize and ran. There was always a lot of other folks that were around us, folks like Willie Brown and, Lee Fisher and, all of those guys that were part of what was happening in the South Ward at that time. And, there was a large movement to want to try to come and get the South Ward Democratic Party, which you would understand because, the South Ward has the largest amount of, voting base and block in the city of Newark. And we worked hand in hand, to get together along with his dad and the congressman to ensure that the party did not switch hands, but that it remained strong and steadfast in the South Ward, and that it did what it needed to do. Not just myself, but along the help with Mayor Baraka, at that time. So we've always, been around working and tilling the soil in the South Ward, making sure that our base remained strong, that our people understood the struggle and sacrifice in the history of the ward, which continues to be paramount today. I think that was real important, and that message was transcended yesterday. And I was glad to hear that.
Now, can you break down more specifically what because you're talking about a conflict where there was there was a takeover, right? Like I know exactly what was going on, right? And what was at stake. But from the outside hearing in, you're not quite sure of what that means, because I don't think a lot of people understand what political organizations are, right? Or what that means. So what does it mean to have a political organization organizing within the South Ward that's about to get taken over? And what does that mean in terms of putting it together? And Eric, please jump in at any point in these questions, because you are also someone who's there on the ground, right? Like at all of these different iterations.
Yeah, Jonathan, it is about base and power, right? It's about serving, protecting the interests of your infrastructure so that your people can always be able to have resources and opportunity. And sometimes folks don't understand or realize the greater good behind that. And so it was at a time where there was a new mayor coming into the city, and they recognized that in order to maintain and want to seek power, that one of the organizations that you had to go after was the South Ward Democratic Party. At that time, it was very strong, but it was also aging, and people thought that they had an opportunity to seize a power where they thought people were divided, and in their best interest of division, sometimes it helps to bring you together. And it was important at that time because of the movement of what was happening throughout the city, throughout the state. And it would have gave those individuals who wanted that seat a hand at power that we did not want to concede at that time. And so again,
what year was that?
Yeah, that was in 2000s.
Okay.
2006.
Wow.
2006. Very pivotal year.
I heard tell of that.
A lot of things that was at stake. There was movement, and leadership, strain and power. There was a sweep, amongst the city administration, and they believed that, because of that, they can have it all. Wow. And they looked at, how do we go in there and finish off what it is that we've done, and they wanted to come after, one of our senior statesmen at that time, Donald Payne, Sr. And we helped to sit down and organize, with the congressman at that time and Don Payne Jr. To make sure that didn't happen. We were up late nights knocking on lots of doors, organizing and making sure that all of that stuff stayed together, and was able to keep the county party together in the South Ward, which is important.
Okay. I know, and those are some real important lessons, right? Talk more about
Eric, I think Eric wanted to add something to that.
Well, I was actually living in LA at that time, and I would talk to Chop and hear about that exact attempt that Pat is talking about, and how you had to fight to maintain that power base. And from what I understand, you guys taught them a little bit of a lesson to show them not to try to come over to the South Ward and bring any of that stuff. So, I go back to Pat. You mentioned Willie Brown. I remember names like Queen James, Pearl Beatty.
Yes.
Councilman Donald Tucker, and a lot of folks like that who kind of, were part of establishing that base that my uncle and those individuals were a part of. And to see them, when I was a kid, it was dealing with Adonisio and Tony Imperiale and how the Black community had to fight back against that racism that was going on from a lot of people in the North Ward. And so how they fought that battle, Mr. Baraka, the mayor's father, and a lot of people that came out of the North Ward, they ran track. Mr. Baraka and my uncle ran track together, so they were fighting on a lot of different levels, to bring the city into a more fair place, to say the least. And and then the uprising was the final straw of it, to really say that we have to take some power, we have to be respected in this city, and we have to have a voice and an equitable part of what's going on in Newark, and brought about the election of Ken Gibson at the time. So standing back and watching and observing, going away and coming back home and watching the progress that was built and how the city developed. And, Mayor James came in after that, and that battle was going on, and that, there was a little bit of, the beef and the drama that was going on during that time. But how we had to build the city and make it a Black city and make it a city that was good for Black people. What I noticed, a lot of things that are going on now, and Newark is a city that a lot of people want to move to, but we all remember at a time that the residents of Newark were the caretakers of the city. And a lot of people moved out and moved to the suburbs, at that time, and left Newark and a lot of other Black communities across the country for dead, pretty much, And so my father had his business, Urban Data Systems down on Freeland Heights and Avenue, made a point of having that business in Newark when a lot of businesses were leaving Newark. Hired a lot of brothers who were coming home, a lot of brothers who couldn't get jobs in other places because of the situation that they had come out of, and because some situations in their life that they were able to overcome. And so he wanted to contribute to that. And so standing back and coming back home and watching the development and where it is now, I always say to people that are living there now, Newark is a great city, and a lot of people are coming in and getting the benefit of a lot of our people building it and bringing it back from literally the ashes, right? Bringing it back from the ashes and making it a city that people want to be in, and a city that they can be proud of. We were always proud of it. And you guys know that Chop always represented Newark wherever he went.
Yep.
Wherever I went, I let people know where I was born and where I was from. So a lot of
you spot on. I think that's what makes it mighty. Like Eric Point, when people say the mighty South Ward, and especially, nowadays, even some of the young people and some of the folks that don't even get it, they say it in this kind of way that they understand what it really meant. Right. And they don't. Right. So when you look at the struggle of the Barakas, the Paynes, the Tuckers, the James, the Crumps, and then now even, you can add the councils in that a little bit. But the thing about when you talk about the mighty South Ward, what made it mighty was that although you thought that these people were always fighting against each other, that at the time of adversity or conflict, that took anything away from the power and the glory of what needed to happen in the city and in the South Ward, unification was going to happen. Unification was going to happen. And that's what made it mighty. And that's what people forget, that us coming together makes us mighty. Not a closed, not a open fist, but a closed fist is what makes us mighty. So that when we throw the blow, people will feel the impact of the blow, no matter where we are across this city, from the South all the way to the North. That's why I tell people all the time, and folks think it's humorous, but it's a fact that whatever happens in the city of Newark, the South Ward is going to lead it.
That's right. That's right. I remember my uncle telling me one time that they were ready to throw down at one time at one particular occasion. You know, all up and down where we are, the Bergen Street area. My mother had a dance school down there for a long time. Thompson Dance Studio wanted to give the opportunity for a lot of the young ladies, young girls to be exposed to dance and the culture. I worked at my uncle's headquarters down there on Bergen Street when I graduated Hampton. Yeah, I know there's some Howard brothers here, and I know the mayor went to Howard, but you know, I'm a Hampton graduate. But you know, doing all that to give a part to make the South Ward great, and like I said, like Pat said, you know, it was always mighty, and people were always willing to get down for it, and that's the thing that leads the city, I believe. And like you're saying, Pat, that's the thing that makes Newark makes Newark move. And then no offense to other wards, but I'm from the South Ward originally, so I got to represent Runner Avenue. So you know,
yeah. Hey, Pat. You know, like, you know, one of the things about the congressman, right? Like, you know, people didn't know he was really like this real cool guy, right? Like, Eric, you might know this because you was probably there when we would go off the air, and so Pat, this dude wouldn't leave, man, right?
Yeah, he wouldn't hang out. Yep.
Yeah, right. And I'd be like, "Yo, didn't you just come from Washington, dude? Like, don't you have to go home?" And he just hung out, man, right?
Yeah,
and
It's a place for him to be himself.
Yeah, and so he would just hang out. I'm talking Eric. I'm talking for hours, right?
Yeah,
We'd be like, "Oh snap!" Like he just hanging out with us, Pat. But his thing, Pat, was really this dude loved music, man.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, for real.
It was about. I mean, he knew the songs, right? He would, you know, he would always. Of course, his favorite was that Jay-Z, you know, "The Streets Are Watching," right? That was his thing. But I mean, you know.
But
like,
he also loved house.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He loved house music. And he loved the garage.
That's thing back in the day.
Yeah, he loved the garage. He loved DJ Larry Levan, legendary house DJ.
That shit, right? Zanzibar Wednesday night.
Brother.
Yeah.
I want to know why he loved that Mountain Dew so much, though, Eric. That guy loved Mountain Dew soda. We were with Obama. Listen, man, I'll tell you the funniest story. We with Obama in a rally in Newark, and before Obama came up to shook his hand, he said, "Man, I gotta take a sip of this Mountain Dew." That brother loved Mountain Dew, brother.
Yeah,
that was a soda. That was a soda when we was kids, you know. I mean, the old school Mountain Dew, you know, that was, you know, liquid gold at that time when he was a kid.
Yeah.
But we used to get in beef about that because, you know, I was like, "Yo, Chop, come on, man, you gotta," you know. I would take cases out of the office and just get rid of them, you know, because I wanted them, you know, I wanted them to get better and lay off that stuff. And I was trying to tell them, you know, it's about your diet. I mean, that could help you try to, you know, if you get on the diet, you know, you can get off all this stuff. And, you know, after a while, I didn't really want to get into it as much because, you know, we cousins, you know, like brothers, and we're going to fight like brothers and get an argument. And, you know, from the time we was on the basketball court and doing whatever, you know, but that was my cousin. I was going to do whatever I had to do to take care of him and try to make him better, like we all did. Because I know it was a community thing. A lot of people would tell him, like, you know, see him drinking that soda, and then when Mountain Dew came up with that orange Mountain Dew or whatever, that
was the last one. That orange thing. He always had. I mean, we even had people run to the store to get him one.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Yep. But you know the other thing, man. I think about. You know, when I think about him, man, and how he would hang out with us, you know, he would always say, because I would ask him, I say, "Man, why you drive by yourself, man?" He'd be like, "Who gonna hurt me? I'm from Newark. What are you doing?" You know what I mean? And I'd be like, "Yo, man, we got to get you some security." Because you know, the last, we had an argument maybe 2 shows ago, because he would stop by and pick up a burger or something, right? Eric and Pat, and he would fall asleep in the driveway.
Yep.
Right? And we had an argument about that, Pat. I said, "Man, I said, you the congressman, man. What you doing?" He said, "Yeah, Ed." He said, "My wife told me that too. Like, she came out one morning, I'm sleeping in the car, man. You know." Yeah. I'm like, and the problem with that for me though, Pat, is that young people, didn't really know who he was, right? And that bothered me. Yeah. And I would say to him, I would say, man, young people don't really know you. We know you, man. And that's why I think that, you know, your wife is correct, man. You can't be doing that, man. He's like, yeah, you're right. I got to make sure I take myself in the house. I would call him fat every now and then, but, you know, take your fat ass in the house. You know what I mean?
Y'all don't know, back in the day, Chop he couldn't gain no weight. He was scared.
Oh, man, really?
Man, he was comical.
Yeah.
Listen, when he came up with that Run DMP, brother, that was it. That was
Yeah.
all over.
Yeah.
Hey, Jonathan, the funniest election that he's ever been in since he was the congressman was between him and Ron Rice Jr. You got to have Ron Rice Jr. tell you the stories of how these guys were traveling to different places and both of them agreeing with each other, talk about how good each other would be. I was like, well, nobody knows go win the election. If both of y'all said everybody's great, this was hilarious, man.
Right.
Yo,
Yeah,
let me show y'all a picture, but I don't know if that you can see that. There he
Yes.
is.
Yeah.
That's how skinny he was. You know,
Wow.
this is us back in the day, you know.
Wow.
And I was talking about, but you see how skinny he is, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And Kafele's reminding us of his high school football
He
days.
did play football at Hillside High. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's deep.
Wow, man. Who would have known that he was that thin, man?
Oh,
you know
yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. You know.
Hey, Pat, you know, before we let you go, man, I got to ask you the same question that we started off with the mayor, then went to LeRoy. Got to kind of ask you the same thing. What do you think, man, in our community, young people should remember most about, you know, our brother Donald Payne Jr., man?
Yeah, I'll always continue to remember and never forget his presence, man. He was always present. You know, this guy, no matter what the situation or circumstance was, you needed him to show up. He was going to be there. You know, and you can count on it without a shadow of a doubt. And our young people have to understand how important being present is in our community and other young people's lives. You know, on our blocks, in our neighborhoods, being present and showing up is impactful. And not only is it impactful, but it can intentionally make a difference in somebody's life when you show up for them, because they'll always remember that. And that's something that they'll never forget. And the congressman was always present, man.
Hey, Pat, thank you, man. We appreciate you, you know, taking time to come on, man, and help us remember our brother. You know, we love you, Pat. We appreciate you for keeping that mighty South Ward going. You know what I mean? So thank you,
as
brother.
we always say, brother Ed, you
Yeah.
got to say his name. That's how we remember him. Say his name.
Congressman Payne.
Congressman Payne. Say his name. Congressman Payne. Say his name. That's how we remember the brother.
Go ahead, brother. That's right.
All right. Thank you,
brother. Stay strong.
Thank you.
OTEP. Peace.
Peace. OTEP.
All right.
OTEP. Hey, brother E, brother
Yeah.
John, Baba Zaid, man, I gotta make a run myself. But again, we honor our brother. We pour libation, right? Because he's a new ancestor. That's our tradition in the conscious community. We pour libation for our brother. We pour water onto the earth or into a plant, and we say, Ibaye Ashe. So I say, Ibaye Ashe. Ibaye Ashe. Ibaye Ashe, yo, to our brother, the late U.S. Congressman Donald Payne Jr. And before I go, big brother, I just want to make a quick announcement that, you know, May is Malcolm's month.
May 19th.
That's right, May 19th.
Know where you going, bad shit? Come on.
So Malcolm X, our conscious brothers and sisters in Newark, New Jersey, Brick City, are going to be doing a Malcolm X readathon taking place in Newark, New Jersey, at the Source of Knowledge bookstore during his birthday month of May. If you are interested, I put the chat in the private chat. I put the link in the private chat. But every single day, we're going to honor Brother Malcolm. Every single day, we're going to honor Brother Malcolm with a reading of a reading excerpt of his book, The Autobiography of Malcolm X. I'm scheduled to read next Saturday. All right, I will be there next Saturday. And I got a very special excerpt picked out for our brother Omar Wali El Haj Malik El Shabazz, aka Malcolm X. That's my piece, brothers. I love y'all for real. Ed, John, Baba Zaid, it's been an honor, brother. It's been an honor always, always, always.
Love you back, man. Love you back.
Bro.
Hotep, peace.
Hotep, brother.
Yeah, I done taught that boy a few things or two. Looking pretty good over there.
No doubt, Baba.
Gotta
Love you,
put
Baba.
in on what he said before we bring William on, right? Because we definitely want to, because May 19th will be the 99th birthday of Malcolm X. And
Okay.
it will be the 59th year. Listen to me for a second. Of our annual pilgrimage to his gravesite, something conceived and organized by his big sister Ella Little Collins, who nobody talks about. Bad sister, who took care of her little brother when it came time for him to go abroad, right? And then their family is still in their house at 72 Dale Street in the Roxbury section of Boston, right? And next year will be his centennial. Next year will be the centennial of Malcolm X. And folks, for the pilgrimage that I mentioned, I want to lift up our young son, our young Pan-African son at Africana Studies, Professor Akil Kalfani, who will be making a bus available soon for students and others similarly interested. I've been trying to get him back on because he's been traveling. He's in Angola right now, right? On that Pan-African front, on the shoulders of what stuff we were talking about, Malcolm. And next year will also be the centennial of the autobiography. The autobiography was released in October 25th, 1965.
Go ahead,
so you got to lay that anchor. I will be reading next week also. In fact, our sister Masani, I wanted to get her on. She just had her hands full, which is a good thing, right? Because that is a rare gem in our city that we need to appreciate. But this is the third of 3 months of trying to build up the value, the basic value, the restoring the value of reading and education in response to a reading challenge that we have to face in our town.
Go ahead, Go ahead, Bob.
Educators, right now. So I just wanted to put a pin in that. Thank you for lifting that up, Bashir. I'm only here because you had to leave.
I was fortunate enough to be in Malcolm X, the film, and learned so much about him. I read the book afterwards, and to understand the man that he was and his journey. A lot of our brothers go through the trials and tribulations, but to see Malcolm come out, and I don't know, a lot of people might not know, I'm sure you brothers know, that he came to Newark, he came to Rutgers University and spoke.
The great Bill, the family took care of him. Bill took care of him. That's right. Bill made that happen. He talks about it often.
Yeah.
And that's documented too, by the way.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, teach, Bob.
Homework on Bill Payne and Rutgers and Malcolm. It will come up. In those newspaper archives. It's there.
Yeah, I'd like to see that because my father
was at the beginning of both of their walks into prominence. I'm glad you lifted that up, Eric.
Yeah,
that was the beginning of both. That's the 1950s.
That's right.
The legend of Malcolm X emerges in 1957. He becomes the minister of the Harlem Temple in 1954. Same year as Brown versus Board of Education. Mid-50s. That was a tough time.
Yes, sir.
And the great Bill Payne, the patriarch of your great family, right, was just beginning to make those moves as a young organizer in this area, and that was a courageous move to bring Malcolm X.
That's right.
Black national scaring white folks to death to Rutgers in the 1950s.
Right.
That was a big deal.
Right.
I think that's why the ancestors brought him on home. Brought Brother Payne Jr. on home in the month of May, brother.
Right. But remember when Bill Payne was on here, Bill Payne talked about that.
That's right. He always does.
Listen. He not only talked about it, remember, he brought those photos, man.
I told you it's documented.
You talk about the photos with Dr. King.
Yeah.
And Medgar Evers. My father talked about his friend Mr. Stevens. Ed Stevens brought Malcolm over. My father talked about asking Malcolm a question and challenged him a little bit and asked him about the Islam and things like that. Malcolm said, brother, you're a Christian, aren't you? He said, when something to the effect of, you believe that you're going to get all this pie in the sky things, and when you get to heaven, you're going to get all these things. We believe that you should get it down here on earth, and instead of waiting until we get to heaven. I have to ask my father exactly what he said, but it was something that Malcolm caused him to think a little bit. And
we got to get him back on too. It's been a
minute. It's great that he tells the story, but just to know that my father had that walk and touch, and I was able to somehow, through an artistic form, portray someone who was close to Malcolm and play one of his FOIs, actually the FOI who shot one of the assassins during that scene. And I got to tell you guys a story. At one point we were shooting the scene.
Reuben X. Francis.
That was his name, right? Brother Reuben, right?
Did not get the memo, not to carry.
Not to carry, right.
And he had Brother Reuben not carried that day, every single one of those criminals would have gotten away scot-free with the aid and abetting of the New York City police.
Go ahead, brother. T. Go ahead, Papa.
Yes, sir.
T. Go ahead.
There was an older brother on the set, and he knew that history too. And he was started calling me Brother Reuben, because it wasn't written in the script that I was playing Brother Reuben. You know,
you got to remember too, we got in the spikes behind so he could do a little better with that film, and that's what we got out of.
Yeah, that's right. So, he told me, when you jump on Giancarlo, don't let him go. Just came and whispered that in my ear. Giancarlo's a good friend of mine, so I was tearing his, you can curse on here, right? I was trying to tear.
Yeah, you good.
I was tearing his ass up, just trying to beat him. And they called a cut, and there was a guy playing one of the cops, one of the white dudes, and he tried to start yelling at me. He said, "You're messing up the take." And at that point, that was the wrong time for that type of person to be saying that type of stuff, and it was getting ready to be real on the set right there. And some of the brothers that were playing my brothers, the FOIs, we were getting ready to get down, and they had to chill us out a little bit. So it was the wrong time for you to try to be the.
Well, look, family, like I said, hey, look, and like I said, the honor the Paynes for their work in helping Brother Malcolm in our community. They brought Brother Payne Jr. on home to the ancestor realm during the month of May, Malcolm's month, birthday month. Powerful. Ashe.
All right,
thank you, family. Y'all stay strong. Love all y'all. I see my brother Barbee there. That's what's up. Yo, Tep, my brother. Good to hear. Good to see you.
Man, I'm just enjoying myself. I'm sitting here listening, and I almost got a little choked up earlier before I was on listening to Eric. My condolences to Eric and the family. I was just with you guys last 2 days. So my love for Chop, as well as respect and honor for your father and the late Congressman Payne Sr. And to this platform of brothers, I know your love for Chop as well. And I guess when I got Ed sent me a text, and I was busy because I was doing some other stuff and I didn't respond. And then he attacked me in the church. In the cathedral of all places.
I attacked you with the love of the brothers, man.
That's right.
That's right.
But I wouldn't have missed this opportunity to be here, seeing you guys, and it's a treat having Eric here. I owe a debt of gratitude. I never told Eric, so I give it to him now. When Eric decided he's doing all these movies is when I really stepped in to fill some voice for Chop. So when Eric decides to come back, I was already in position, but it was his position. And so it was indeed an honor and a privilege having a friend. From Chop's perspective and my relationship, it was built on friendship. We lived around the corner from each other. And actually, the house, he's on Bach, I'm on Custard, the house that I own right off Seymour. And so seeing Chop in the neighborhood when we were younger, we looked at most of the guys coming up, particularly those who came back then. King Gibson was the mayor, and you had the council people, which was Sharp, Payne, Ron Rice, Ralph T. Grant, Bradley, Tucker, Villiani, or whatever her name was, and some others. And so their sons we thought were all spoiled. So When they always wanted us to do stuff or asked us to do stuff for their fathers, we ignored them. Part of it was we was envious of them, and we just marveled at their fathers because we held them
Tell
up.
that truth, Mike. Tell that truth, brother.
It is the truth. You know, we held their parents up as superstars, not them.
Yeah.
And so Chop would often tell that story. So as I got into business and making money in transportation, limos, ambulance at the time, and real estate, before I really blew up, Chop would tell me, "Hey, Mike, man, why don't you come and help do this and do that?" I said, "Man," and back then in my 20s, I wasn't interested too much into the political world. My father was very active with union organizing. We weren't children of elected officials. And so we looked at the children from a different lens. And so we thought they were rich, even though we didn't realize they just lived around the corner. And so we marveled at that. So when Chop finally got my ear, we have a corner store in the corner of Custer and Bergen. And Chop used to stand down there all the time. And we had the church right there adjacent, Palm Gardens. I don't know the true name of the church anymore. But he would try to get me to come support this, support that. And then one day I told him, I said, "Chop, my ambulance company," because I had a private ambulance service for almost 30 years, transported Maxine James, who happens to be, at the time, she's Chris James' mother, but she happens to be the Congressman's chief of staff at the time. And I'd never told him that my ambulance company was transporting Maxine James for years to her dialysis appointments. And so one day I decided to say, "Look here, man, I already know this, know that." So I decided to get involved. And so started just spending time with his father, helping with that stuff, passing stuff out, going to all of the events. Then Eric was away again, and that's why I'm so grateful to Eric. I never gave him the credit, but I give it to him again now. Chop needed his friends around him. And so he and all of us, by then my feelings for him started changing. His thoughts of me as being some wealthy guy, which I was just around the corner from him. So we both had misconceptions of the other. We decided to come together because he was hearing the same narrative from me. He was hearing the same narrative. I hadn't met at the time. Rick Thigpen was selling the same thing. Wilfredo Benitez was selling him the same thing. And Larry Key, who was his boss on the Garden State Parkway, was selling the same thing. We were always saying, "Hey, run for office. You have a name, a legacy. Our parents are going to die." The narrative that came out later was that we have become our parents. And so as Chop would have it, we decided to get together and we would meet in Montclair. The challenge wasn't that he was running for office, going in the forefront. The challenge was hearing from his Uncle Bill and his father, and he just had this reverence for them that I grew up with my uncles and our senior relatives. You never want to mess up the family's name. And that's something that he held to heart till the day, Eric can attest to this, till the day he died. He never wanted to mess up that family's name. And he held true to that till the day he died. And so he got us together. And so my role, I was finance, money, and business and small business. Wilfredo was family because he was married to Eric's sister. And he was a big cheerleader. Things are what they are. But back then, he was a big cheerleader. And you had Rick, who was cousin, Rick Thigpen. And Rick, because his father's relationship, he knew where the bones were buried. And then Larry Key was management because he was his boss over on the Parkway. And so when you had that Larry was just telling me the other day at the courthouse, some name that we had given ourselves with Chop before he got into elected office. But we just started strategizing. Our first strategy was which office did we want to run for? Second strategy was how do we give him the balls or the encouragement to tell his daddy and his uncle, because he respected he put the fear of God of Uncle Bill in all of us at the time. Until I really got to know Uncle Bill, only to know that he and my Uncle Jimmy Williams were in welfare back in the late 50s. They started together as supervisors. And so that bond with our families were meshed before we were born. And so we really started talking and strategizing. And then so his father and Uncle Bill said, "All right, well, you got to raise some money." And I knew I wasn't going to dig too deep in my pockets, but I said, well, I can have a fundraiser. Never had a fundraiser. So at my house in West Orange, in 2 hours, we raised around $9,000 to $10,000. And I don't like people coming to my house.
Wow.
And that was the first fundraiser, which Eric has seen me over the years do quite a few, and just one last year that we all were in attendance at. And so I started introducing CHOP to a more financially strong, independent wealth of resources and networks. And so we started growing from there. My bond with each, Rick was separate, Wilfredo was separate, Larry was separate. And then even early on, Chris James worked for the Essex Regional Educational Services, where CHOP also worked. CHOP was the transportation coordinator. Chris James was an aide inside of that under the auspice of Jackie Young. And Chris, he was on the outskirts. And then, believe it or not, it was Congressman Payne Sr. who introduced Angela Garretson to our team. Because he felt we were missing the energy that a young person would bring. And me being the youngest on the team, I was the youngest by maybe 6 years, 7 years. Me being the youngest on the team, Angie was 10 years younger than me, and she brought this energy, passion. And so she came from Hillside and got heavily involved in a lot of the legwork. And she was a great strategist back then. And so the birth of these relationships, Angie goes on to be a mayor, commissioner, Rick's vice president of public service, electric and gas. Wilfredo's a judge. I'm a retired, I'm in my 50s, man. I've been retired since my 40s because of business. I mean, I own companies. And so the money works for me. But I have to give credit to a lot of it to Choppy. You know, and over the years, our relationships blossomed. I started stepping back. I'll tell you this. I started stepping back when he didn't protect me. And I really felt the way he and I used to go at it on this. If you have a financial base here that's supporting, you don't let others know. And so, you know, that's some treasure that you should always hold. And so that's where he and I would clash. But I'm going to tell you, there wasn't nothing I wouldn't do for him. Owning an ambulance service, being in the medical field, working 17 years for in the medical field in dialysis. When Choppy and it would be me, Rick, Chop, at times Chris, he would go home early. Wilfredo went home early. Uncle Bill and Chop's father, we would meet, well, at the end of campaigning for his father, we would meet on Washington Street. There was this, not a bar, but what was it? It was a club on Washington Street between Court and William. On the left-hand side, it was a house. It was a social club. Do y'all remember that?
Bridge Club.
The Bridge Club. Yeah, we would meet there, and I wasn't a drinker. I always had a ginger ale and a cherry, and that's what I always nursed. But they would be, you know, people show their respect and love for the Paynes, and they would just pass the drinks and stuff. And Rick and I were just talking recently how, man, you know, had we known what we know today, we would have probably pulled away earlier. Uncle Bill always left at 11. I left at 1, and I left chopping his father there every night. So we, I have to say, man, it was good times. There's a lot of grooming. I remember just last year, a year and a half ago, I ran for office in West Orange. Me getting in the forefront of this whole political thing, trying to make a difference since I was so impactful in the community with my companies, having over 80 employees for a number of years. Chop jumped. He was the only elected official that jumped behind me in the public, and he needed exposure in West Orange since it was redistricting. And so I was able to provide that in platforms, resources, relations, and he gave me the weight of his family's legacy. And so when I think about Chop, I have to think about our relationship, you know, and I think of the most humble person you'll ever run across. Often I had the opportunity, because I own property in Virginia and different places, I would be in DC, and Chop, and I'm sure Eric would tell you, all of this stuff that people look at, you know, he didn't care for the fame, the attention. Chop wanted to just be a regular person and have fun and do the work for you. One thing I could truly say about Chop is that what you shared with him while we stayed with him, you could trust him behind any door. You can trust him behind every door. He never bragged about the things he was doing. He executed. And I'll tell you, one of the last meetings that was on his calendar, I'm on the board of directors many years for the Mental Health Association and quite a few organizations. But with the Mental Health Association, Bob Davison is executive director. He's been on your program here.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. And so Bob said, Mike, we need help. I said, what do you need? He said, well, your friend, Congressman Payne, we just family first, family support and the Mental Health Association wanted to meet with Congressman Payne Jr. Just to tell him thank you. And I said, oh, y'all don't want anything? And so, so it was just a direct. I'm very direct with all of these cats, and so they just wanted to tell him thank you. And so I called Chop and I said, "Yo, dude, look here, Bob and the rest of them. They just want to come together, so they want us all to come up to your office. And I don't know how they want to thank you, but they want to thank you." He said, "Oh man, that'd be good, man." I said, "Well, I'll get it straightened." And somehow Mike Gray called me immediately for something else. And I said, hey, Mike, get me in touch with the scheduler or just put me on the schedule. She confirmed. And next thing you know, he had his accident. Then, we know the rest. But it was just something. CHOP will always be important to me. And I'll show you just the depth of our relationship and I'm done. It was so powerful that all of my whenever he had events, he used, and we never charged them a penny ever, whether it was my crew filming of 10 people down there filming at his galas or his father's services. He always trusted my either limo service or transportation service to do everything or the filming thing or both. And so when you see all these celebrities come to town, it was always our car service. So if you see me in pictures with them, it's because I would have them for days, whether it's John Lewis, Maxine Waters, you name it.
Yeah, miss your car service. It's good service.
Yep.
Pardon me?
Miss your car service. It's good service, brother.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Prestige Tours is our company, and I sold it last year after 37 years in business. But I'm just saying he trusted me with his most valued possessions, particularly when these people are in the district. But his most valuable possession is what he trusted me with my media company. Actually, it was Craig Stanley, Eric's older cousin, who brought his daughter, Catherine, into my office around 15 years ago. And he said, well, Catherine's trying to make movies, and I know you do movies, Mike, and she needs to come on your team and all this other stuff. So I brought her in. And that movie that she helped us on played at the 2019 Cannes Film Festival called Beyond the Silence, based on one of my books. And so the family's love for me has been great. And finally, the most honored piece, and Eric, you and I will have to sit down on this piece and really discuss how to move forward on it. I have the 4-day footage, outdoor, indoor, 24-hour footage of the late Congressman Donald Payne's services. Everything from him before he got into the rotundum. So we had stationary cameras all around before he got there, when he got there, when he left, outside, the whole gamut. We have all of that. And we've had it for years. And it's just been and Choppy and I talked about it. And he's like, hey, one day, we're going to do it this way, do it that way. So, we'll figure out how to do it with the family to see what's the best route. But we have the 4-day. We have everyone from David Dinkins' interview to Kimby Matumbu, Don King. We have all these guests, and my staff was out there 4 whole days. And then I'm looking, my limos are driving the family. My limos are the ones in the processional. So I'm like, oh, wow.
Right.
But that's the love I had. And it was never a dollar exchange between he and I. He believed in me. I remember 2007, I became Essex County. When we got him into Freehold, I became his delegate for entrepreneur because no one knew about Mike Barbee except for him. So, and I prefer behind the scenes.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
So, Eric, I love you, dude.
I love you too, Mike. That's the thing about putting our people in the positions to be able to excel, right? Putting our people in the positions to be able to excel and grow their businesses and do things like that. One thing I noticed about the family, I was like, we're doing all of this, but we need a war chest because that's what politics is. We have a lot of people dedicated in the community just across the board, but African Americans, this political game that we're forced to play in this country, we as Black people need to have the financial wherewithal to fight the forces that are coming at us, because you know, the way they use the media, the way they use all these type of things against us, man, you know, a lot of times, a lot of Black candidates, not just, you know, my family, but across the board, don't have the resources to battle back, don't have the resources to get the message out, right? And so bringing together, you talked about our fathers knew each other because your father was in the union. That's part of the resources, organizing Black labor.
That's right.
Black politics. That's where the power comes from. You remember A. Philip Randolph, you know, sleeping car porters. That's what they were doing.
Pioneering labor organizing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
my grandfather was
Yep.
with that union and played in the Negro Baseball League. Interesting thing, Eric, I wanted to add when you were talking about, you know, the resources, finance, but we also need the education, because as a businessman, one of the things that I know we lack in our community is cohesiveness and education with financial literacy. And we also need to be more strategic, intentional about structuring factors that move forward, and not, you know, one of the things that's missing in the political front in our community is this whole mindset of bringing business strategy to the table. If we create wealth for ourselves, we can create it for a platform.
Yes.
Fair enough, right? Like, and we definitely are going to have you back, because like there's so much richness, right? Like you bring so much of the stories that we don't know, and you weave in so many different holes, right? And that's part of what tonight is about, right? Part of tonight is about celebrating and honoring the entire person, right? So we will definitely have to have you back, just to help us fill in a lot more of these, and also to talk about many of those other things, because your history is rich. We love having you on our show, and we definitely have to bring you back again.
But Mike, let me just say this before, Mike, that you know, the film, I just put the trailer for the film in our chat, and I hope folks take a look at it. It was a groundbreaking film, right? Brothers are still having trouble, you know, trying to be honest with themselves about that front. But I want you to know that you are the pioneer of something that is definitely has traction in this town. We have built up a community-based violence intervention ecosystem in this town that has that at its foundation, right? So brothers coming back from some of the hardest places, some of us understand the need to do what we need to do to heal, right? And we appreciate you stepping out front like that several years ago. I just want to make sure that. All right?
Thank you, Mike. We love you, brother.
I love you guys. Be well.
All
Love
right,
you back.
Peace,
Love
brother.
you back.
Beautiful, beautiful, y'all. Beautiful. Oh my God.
Well, welcome, Council President LaMonica McIver, Newark Council President. Glad to have you on our show again, right? Like, love having you on. You always bring so much. Thank you for coming for this celebration of Congressman Payne's life, right? Like, because he meant so much to so many people. And one of the things that we will hope to bring out is the way in which the different politicians work with the activists, and they work with each other. And we've heard so many positive stories about it. You are a person who, like, every time we talk, we're talking about some policies, and you're going deep in the weeds on something for Newark, whether it be housing or other things that you're working on. And you definitely know that connection between, like, the things that we're working on the citywide level, and the help and the coordination that's needed on other levels as well, right? At state level, federal level, how they interact and work together. Tell us some of the your interactions with the congressman, and what he did that impacted, made easier, helped the stuff that you did. Hello?
She's trying to. Monica, can you hear us? Oh, she had a connection issue. Yeah, she had a connection issue. So we're bringing the mighty Central Ward into the conversation.
Great.
part of Ward.
That's awesome.
Forward
Right.
to that. Looking forward to that.
Okay, absolutely, absolutely. So looking forward to bringing you back on. But I like tonight because tonight we've all been talking. We've had people in terms of personal people talking about the different political stories, the different personal stories, all of which are just incredibly important. We got you back.
I'm back. I'm sorry, guys.
That's why you couldn't hear us.
I'm shaking. I'm
You hear my
shaking
big
and
mouth.
I'm shaking and moving today. I'm not like at my desk like I'm usually am. I just literally have ran out of a community late tenant meeting with the police just now, and I ran to the car, and then someone was calling me when you were talking, Jonathan. So forgive me. Y'all know I'm usually a little bit more professional than this tonight, being
Yeah.
in the car with you all, but it was just a taxing. It's been a taxing day, but. It's a pleasure for me to be on as always. You guys know I love to come on. I love to be on the chat, and I was definitely catching a little bit from Mr. Eric Payne, which I definitely enjoyed his remarks at yesterday's wonderful homegoing celebration. And then also to the other gentleman, Mr. Barbee, I believe his name was, just talking about a lot of the history. And you know me, since I'm like a youngin', in this thing, I love to listen to, the stories. I love to talk, hear people talk about, I don't want to say back in the day because it wasn't that long ago, but prior to me getting into elected office. So I'm definitely always interested in that. So Jonathan, I'm sorry I didn't catch like your question as I was literally getting signed out of the StreamYard.
Well, no, well, first, always we appreciate you, and you are always professional. You were just doing a lot of professional things, right?
That's the word.
So this is
That's the
awesome.
word, baby.
This is part of the job, right? You are doing your
All
thing
about the people.
inside of meetings. You have a meetings online, like you doing your thing. That's always professional, right? You always doing your thing. So I appreciate that. Absolutely. I was asking, like, a lot of times when you're on the program, we're talking about some policy you're working on, something that's like you like getting in the weeds on stuff, right? Like, and you're like, hey, this is how this will work. These are the programs that people need to have in place. You are really big on talking about that in terms of housing. I'd love for your perspective on uh, the congressman's legacy, and specifically with things he might have done, interactions you might have had that made your job easier, or any of those other interactions. Like I'm sometimes I geek out on just seeing how things work together in terms of civics. Sometimes I'm just like, but I know that you're a person who's like, you are always working on things, right? So what has been like your interaction? What stories can you tell us about that interaction?
So I think number one, like it's like I always say, you can't talk about Newark without talking about the Paynes. At the bottom line, like the legacy that they have, lit the streets of Newark with. I mean, it's irreplaceable. Like, you know what I mean? And I think, everything that they've done, even from Payne Senior to, Choppy. I mean, it's legendary, to be honest with you. And I always appreciated my interactions with Congressman Payne. Like, I mean, definitely all the time. I mean, he literally was just in City Hall in September. He stopped by. Someone in my office came and said, Congressman Payne is outside. And I said, outside of my office? I said, oh my God. Like, I ran, to go outside. I'm like, oh my God, Congressman Payne, like, what are you doing here? He's like, oh, I was just in the building and I stopped by. I'm like, oh my God, come on in. And we started, he started telling me about all of the stories of back when he got, elected to, be council president. And he was asking me about the offices. It's like this running joke in City Hall about the offices you get when you're the council president. They give you the first office, which they claim is bigger, but to me, honestly, it's really not. It's just people have more stuff, so it looks bigger, but really, it's like all of our offices is the same size. And I was telling him that, Councilwoman Crump was in that, Council President Crump, excuse me, was in that office. And when we were moving, because things happen so fast after the election and, the swearing in, folks are moving. I mean, things are just shaking so quick. I had told Councilman Crump, which is a council president's son, who was occupying the office. I'm like, you good. You could stay. I'm fine. Like I like the office that I have. It's cool. All of them are the same. And Congressman Payne thought that was like, it's just so funny. He was like,
Right.
you should have moved into the other office, the office for the council president. I'm like, but really, it's the same office.
Right.
The only
Right.
difference is it has like a intercom system that they all used to use to like basically make announcements. And I'm like, it's cool. Like I'm good in my other seat. So we just like literally bugged out about it, and he was telling me about when he was moving into the office and all of that. And I mean, it was just like a great interaction because, like I said, I'm always interested in hearing a lot of the history, the stories. I mean, it's just so enriching to hear. And I was just like dying laughing, just in my office dying laughing about it because it was just so funny. And I said, oh my God, I can't believe that happened back then, and compared to like now being the council president and having that seat now. It's just it's interesting to see before and now, of how things used to be. And we laughed and talked about council meetings because council meetings are always a hot topic and always a topic of conversation. But it was just a genuine conversation. And I always say, like, Congressman Payne, he was a quiet storm. I think folks looked for him to be this and be that, but he was powerful even in his humbleness and his quietness. He was still a quiet. I always say he was a quiet storm. And I'm just so grateful for the time that we got to share, the time that we got to talk, even if it was just through text, if it was just a quick interaction. I appreciate that. Because at the end of the day, I'm standing on his shoulders too. I always talk about standing on the shoulders of Council President Crump, but I'm on his shoulders as well because he served in his capacity. And those who came before me, y'all know how I am. I have a lot of respect for them, and I always feel like you can learn a little bit from everyone. Some a whole lot, some a little, but everybody has something to offer. So just being able to have that interaction and be able to talk with him, to me, I'm just grateful. I'm extremely grateful and blessed to have had those interactions and that opportunity.
Nice.
Beautiful.
The
Nice.
it's one. I think one of the things that we talk about in a lot with, right, like, is just the way in which he moved so that everybody just felt like he could have these conversations, um, and then from a result of those conversations, he can get things done. Um, you are someone also who who has a lot of conversations, right? Like, and you work with everybody, right? You're known for, from what I gather, from what I hear, you're known for working with everybody, right? Like, there's not one person who can't work with you, doesn't work with you. Um, what do you have to say about that part of his legacy? The part of his legacy where you just like you are the importance of the personal relationships.
I always say, in this business we're in, partnership is key. I always say my middle name is partnership. And I would say that about, like, Congressman Payne as well. Like, I never met anyone that ever said, oh, I don't like Congressman Payne, or, I can't work with, I never heard that. Like, I've been in office now for what is it, 7 years, and I've never heard
Wow,
that. Yeah, I know, right? Time goes by
7 years? Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
we're in
Wow.
term two. We're entering the third year. It feels like it was just yesterday I was getting on the show saying that I was running, and here we are, a whole second term. But I mean, in all of that time, I've never heard anybody say that, about Congressman Payne. And you hear that a lot, about some folks like, hey, I can't work with them. This is that, this is this, but never so. I think that he was a wonderful partner, and I think, like, he always showed up to a lot of things that we had here in the city of Newark. He would, I mean, the least of the things you think he'll be coming to, right? It'll be like a small celebration of something, that we're having, I don't know, on the Urban Turner Boulevard, and you'll just see Congressman Payne pop up like, hey, how you doing? I'm like, oh my
Yep.
God, I didn't even know you
That's
were coming.
right.
Like,
We're going nowhere, right?
he wouldn't need to
Yep.
make an announcement. He wouldn't say, like, he wouldn't call us in advance, like, oh my God, I'm coming, like, lay out the red none of that. Like, he
That's
would
true.
just show up and he would just be there and you would just appreciate it. Like, hey, I'm so excited, Congressman, you came out. Like, you're at our little celebration here, I think sometimes people are not used to seeing Congress people like that, in that light, just showing up, just being there. But he always showed up. I mean, if we were having 24 hours of peace, he was there. He would come, enjoy the, festivity. He was there.
Love, love it.
Baba knows he was there. He came, showed up, stayed a long time. So a lot of the things that we did here in the city, he would be there, showing up, being there, humble as pie, and I think for me that meant, like, he was a good partner. He never forgot where he came from. He was always here, and you could appreciate that. So, I really appreciated that about him, where, and I know the mayor always talks about too, about how, anything that the city was facing, whatever we needed, you called Congressman Payne and he was there. Like, oh, I'm coming, no problem, I'm gonna be there. We gonna work this out, whatever the case might be. So I just, you can appreciate that, coming from your United States congressperson, being present, being there, showing up, even when it wasn't a high profile show up. It wasn't like the pictures were going to be on New York Times. It was, just a little celebration on Irving Turner Boulevard. He was there with us, and that's something that I'll never forget.
Yep, that's exactly right. The congressman would just show up, and I would always ask him that same thing, like, like, did you get an invitation? I don't need no invitation, man. I'm like, okay. I'm like, did anybody let you know? Nah, it's all good, man. I'm here. And he would just hang out in the background, right? We would have to bring him forward, right? Because he would just show up, man. And I always thought that was impressive about our brother, just in terms of the way he was real community, and particularly if he was in town, right? And he heard something was going on, and he didn't need to be up front. He didn't need to be the first person to speak. It was whenever you brought him on, he was comfortable with it. So you absolutely right, Council President, in terms of how our brother moved, and I think that's a real good example for what we ought to take from anybody who has that kind of leadership role, right? In terms of how, because one thing Barbee was talking about was his humbleness, right? How humble he was, right? That here we have a United States congressman, but he moved in the community like he was just a regular brother, right? In the community. And we've got to, from my standpoint, y'all know I'm going to miss him. But I think that is one of the things that I think that when we talk about legacy, one part of his legacy is that we have to remember that. And Eric, Barbee was correct. I think people was really jealous of y'all, and nobody wanted to let the Paynes know that, right? Like you guys, the Paynes, the Barakas, and all of that. And so people may have wanted to help, but they were just jealous. Of course, we can't say that about the council president, because she was too young to know. That's why she can't work.
But once people got to know us, we were just trying to be regular, and that was the thing I noticed, and winning some elections, my uncle's first one, it was some people on the other side, other candidates that weren't too happy, and they were upset about it. And my vibe was like, the decision was made, but none of us grew up with even having a stuck-up vibe or thinking we're better than that. That wasn't going to fly in the house. And if you was acting that way, we was going to catch it. So nobody was allowed to act that way. And it was just a humble thing. The interesting thing that the council president was saying about my cousin just showing up, my uncle would do the same thing. Don Payne Sr. would just show up at places, and you would see him, and you might see him at the spot having a Heineken back in the day or whatever, or coming to functions without announcing himself, and didn't want any fanfare, excuse me, or any of that. And that's really how we were taught. It's about your neighborhood. It's about your community, your neighbors. Basically your neighbors are the ones who think that you have the experience or that entrust you with your advice, with their voice. My uncle started as a teacher. My uncle and my mother were teachers back in the day. So he kind of never lost that that thing to want to help young people. Certainly, that was my Uncle Donald's really driving purpose, to help young people and would get people into college. I mean, the whole youth and government program, the whole kind of fraternity. I had some of the cats was out in the street, might have been banging back in the day, kind of developed the fraternities for the high school people. You know, the older heads will talk about those old parties. I was talking to my older cousin Lauren and George. They're about 10 years, almost in their 70s now, but they were talking about, and other people were talking about, they would have 35-cent parties at the Y back in the day downtown after they had their sorority meeting. And we were the younger ones going through the youth and government program. We would be out of there 7 to 9, and they would all start flowing in. The fraternities would meet, and then they would have their little parties and things. And that was a way to kind of channel that energy, you know, that could cause young people to get into negative things. So, you know, we just learned to be, you know, part of the community, and it wasn't anything trying to be stuck up or whatever. And we worked to show that to people, that we're no different than anybody else.
Well, listen, man, I tell you one thing. I think that has to be part of the legacy that I think that all of us are going to have to remember, you know, that, you know, being able to be that kind of humble person and move in the city like that. And I think, you know, I mean, one of the things is, you know, Council President, I remember, and John, y'all, and Zayed, you're going to remember this. Remember when the congressman was telling us that he realized his power, right? Being the council president. Y'all remember that? You know, when he was right. Remember when he said that, you know, when he became the council president, LaMonica, he said he didn't know what that power was. He said, I didn't know, you know, what that power was. He said, but when I got in that position, and he said they were counting on my vote to do something with the water or whatever, he said he realized what that position meant, right? Because he didn't understand what it meant. And so, you know, those kind of lessons that we can take from somebody who could come on and do the Payne report and be as committed as he was, but was willing to share, right? Was willing to educate. I think those are the important lessons that we have to hold on to with regards to the legacy of Congressman Donald M. Payne Jr.
Mic dropper. So we can't. I remember the story. You remember the story, but we got to teach. You got to tell it. You got to tell a story.
Well, I like to say no one can ever really say they saw my cousin mad, saw him have an argument with any. The last time I saw you, Madam Council President, we just dipped into a council meeting. He wanted to come by the council meeting, and you made a point of acknowledging him as we were sitting there in the audience. And he just wanted to come by and observe and show that he was there. It was actually coming from another function. He said, let's go by, you know, the Newark council meeting. And, you know, like you said, he would just pop in, say hello, and show the people that he was going to be supportive and support you and the council.
And remind you, it was like after 10 o'clock.
Yep.
That was literally just like maybe last month's night meeting or something.
A couple of
like
months ago.
He just literally walked in, and I'm like, is that Congressman Payne back there? I'm like, wait a minute, y'all. Stop all of this. Let's, you know, acknowledge Congressman Payne, because I mean, literally, he just had walked in. I mean, he didn't tell us he was coming or anything. I mean, night meeting, y'all know how it's going. It's 10 o'clock after 10 o'clock p.m. You know, we done got through half of it. And he walked in and he stayed. You know, he was able to, you know, talk with the council people when we got done. We closed out the meeting. We spoke with him, and you know, it was really good to see him. But I mean, literally, that was not even too long ago. You know, that he was there with us. And we just appreciate it. But he would have just sat in the back the entire time, and you know, if we didn't know it was him, he wouldn't have came and said, hey, it's me, like, you know, announce me, whatever the case might be. He just was there chilling, watching the meeting. I'm like, you missed this, huh? You missed coming to the he laughed about it. But you know, it was a pleasure to have him. It's always a pleasure to be, you know, in his presence. You know, it was a pleasure to be in his presence each time we had the opportunity to. But yeah, I actually had almost forgot about that, Eric, when he came. And like I said, that wasn't even too long ago.
That's right.
Good stuff, y'all. Good stuff.
Yeah. And the last time I was on this show, He was doing the Payne report.
Right.
We were coming on. I forgot which topic we might have been talking about. Oh, we were talking about the voting, the 16-year-old voting. I think that was the last time I was on. He was doing the report. He was driving actually, like, in a car, and he was on. I mean, he was faithful. You guys, coming on. You could expect the Payne report, and for him to be on here. And that was the last time I was on. I literally on this show.
Mm.
Yeah, that's why I said when you said I was driving and you're like, oh, it's not. I'm like, no, this is the profession. You driving and
That's
talking
it.
and doing.
That's it.
Yeah.
Those are the nature of the meetings and the stuff you do because you do a lot for the community consistently, right? And again, you get into the weeds. You care. So definitely appreciate having you on. That as always.
Now, Monica, let me ask you this. Now I'm gonna put you back in your chair of responsibility for a moment, young lady. Now, as one of the principal leaders in this town now, and an important role model for a cross section of a whole lot of us, right? What is it about the legacy of Congressman Donald Payne Jr. do you want young people who are paying attention to who you are, who listens to you, to take away from all of this?
So I think the one thing when I think about Congressman Payne that I would want young people to take away from the legacy of Donald Payne is the fact that you don't have to, show your whole behind or act a fool to be powerful, to
Come
be
on.
strong, and to get
Come on.
things done. I think that young people, we just feel like, even I put myself in the category. Sometimes we feel like we got to show, power by like our emotions and to be, acting a whole fool sometimes, and I think, you don't have to do that. Like, and I think Congressman Payne, he was a pure example of that. He was, meek and humble. He was not, cussing people out or, acting a fool all the time, but he was powerful. He was getting things done for his district. He went to Washington and represented, and, you can be that. Like, you can be that. We all can be that. Like, you don't have to, be one way to show power. Being rude and nasty or being, all uppity, as folks say, sitting on the pedestal, you don't have to be that to show power, and I think that's the number one thing that I take from a Donald Payne Jr., from his legacy. The top thing I would think of. I mean, you could spend a lot of time talking about what the Payne family did for the city of Newark and all of those things, but just, separate into a Donald Payne Jr., that was the one thing I looked at him and I'm just like, you doing it. Like, you don't gotta, like, you ain't gotta break a sweat. I mean, I'm sure he's breaking plenty of sweats, but he didn't have to show up a sweat to get things done and let people know that he existed and he was there and he got the job done.
Mic dropper, daughter. Mic dropper.
Absolutely.
Drop that.
Absolutely. Right. Like the ability to be effective based on the way that you roll. So thank you.
For the reality TV generation, that was dead on point.
Right. Right.
But
I see council meetings are like a whole new show.
But LaMonica have it a little tough, Eric, because some of these folks don't know the history. You know what I mean? They don't know the history and the level of respect they ought to have. So she have it tough. And those of us, who are her friends, those of us who love her, we got to stand back sometime and just, understand that she's a public figure and not really say anything because, some folks go too far. You know what I mean? And they don't have enough sense to know that we ain't always been, this calm of Black folk. We know how to say some things too.
Right.
And some of those folks get it. But LaMonica, she handles it well, and I think that she's clear that that some of these folks, we need to do the Bible thing with them. Love,
when I came home when my cousin was in the council and just observed some meetings, I was visiting home from Cali, and I know how it gets in them council meetings, Madam Council President. So, and I watched you, young lady, if I can do it. I'm a little older, I'm a little you're younger than my cousin, but I watched you come on the scene with a force, and been very inspired by the work you've been doing and the name that you've been making by the work that you've been doing and by the example that you set. So, you know, keep going. You know.
Thank you. Keep praying for me.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, Councilwoman, we want to say thank you. We appreciate you. Always when we call on you, you show up, right? And Council President, you need to tell them who was the first person to call you a councilwoman.
It might have been you, wasn't it?
Exactly. Right?
I
You
think that
talking
was
about, hey, Eric, she was talking about, well, I ain't win yet. I said, no, I'm speaking it into existence.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
She, well, I ain't win yet. I ain't get no votes yet. I said, you the councilwoman.
You got
Right?
to visualize
That's
that,
right.
manifest it.
Yeah.
It literally felt like last week we were there. We were here on this show talking about it, and then fast forward, it's like a whole nother term. We
7
don't went through a
years.
whole nother election.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, LaMonica, you keep hanging in there. You know we love you. You know what I mean?
Thank you. No, thank you guys so much, and thank you so much, Mr. Payne. It's good to see you again. And just it's always good just to hear you talk, and definitely to talk about the legacy and your family, and just thank you for everything that you contribute and your family has done. I mean, like I said, can't talk about Newark without talking about the Paynes at all.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So thank you guys so much. Hopefully I'll be back on soon.
Yep.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. See you guys. Have a good weekend.
Yes,
Bye.
Bye, Papa.
All right, baby cakes. We see you.
All right. We are going to have our community announcement right now. We have there is a play. We had them on last week,
yes.
right? And we have it is an anti-bullying play that is taking place tomorrow. We have some adults and kids on to make an announcement and tell us this. We are in the middle of our tribute to Congressman Payne, but we have our community announcements with very, very positive adults and kids organizing this anti-bullying play. They were brought in 2 weeks ago for an interview, and we want to make sure that everybody knows that they're here again. So big shout out to Marquise Lewis. He always tells us when things are going on. Always brings us guests, all the other stuff. So always grateful to him. So shout out to Marquise Lewis. Tell us, what's this program that's going on, and tell us and remind us what it's about.
It's that's not cool. Bullies don't win. It's about a stage play indicating the different stages of bullying, and we have had a tremendous cast blessed upon us to display this. And we have two cast members, Mason, Lewis, and Elijah, who are both very instrumental in the play, giving a description of how someone is bullied, and the counselor is giving him instructions on how to live his life and not accept what has happened, but be able to understand the dynamics of bullying and being a better person. So we're campaigning it. We call this the Anti-Bully Campaign, and a stage play written by Dr. Pastor Michael Carr, directed by myself, Lisa Bell, and Deacon Dwayne Hickman. And we have a cast that is phenomenal. I mean, we ask that everyone come and see it, not just children, but adults too, because it's battling mental health, the overall bullying, depression, suicide. It's just a tremendous statement, and it's a statement that we're recognizing now that the state of New Jersey has a high volume of bullying. It's a lot in the news, on different levels. And it's not just in the schools, it's in the workplace, it's in the churches, it's in our community. And we feel like we can make. Excuse me?
Trying to get in the White House.
Right.
Yeah. Let's start there.
Donald Trump is a bully.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
All right. So Mason, Elijah, do you want to add to why we should come see this play? Tell us some more about it.
You want to go, Mason?
Sure, I'll go. So you should see this play. It's about bullying, and it's about
the effects of bullying and the impact that it can have on people. Um, and it's just a phenomenal play. It's just about how people um, are affected by bullying and how bullying needs to stop. And the message that they're trying to get is that it's just not cool. It's not cool to be a bully. It's not cool to encourage bullying. You should try to stop it if you see it.
And this is
And-
tomorrow, May 4th, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
May
And
4th
where is it? Where is it located? Where is it located?
It's at Central High School, and the doors open at 5 p.m. and the show starts at 6 p.m.
So it's tomorrow, 5
Yes.
o'clock at Central High School. All right,
Yes.
Elijah, what do you have to add? Talk to us.
So I would say that people should come out and see it because it's life changing. For me, being part of the cast, I said this before, helped me through that.
Oh man, is he
All
back?
right, you're going out in terms of sound.
Yeah, he's getting ready to get into a
Can you
groove.
hear me?
We can hear you now.
Try it again, son.
Okay. So I think people should come out because it's like life changing. And for me, 10 years ago, I talked about this before. I went through bullying, and being part of this cast, it helped me like go through the healing that I needed to go through. And there's people that have, like, you know, hatred towards their bullies for 30 years, 20 years, 40 years. Some people go to it to the grave without forgiving the person that hurt them. And so I want people to come out and to just experience it so they could get the healing that they need, because they shouldn't have to live with the hatred in their heart. And I want them to have more love and more peace in their life. And so I think it's a phenomenal play that people should come and watch.
Let me pull something together here very quickly. One, I want to introduce the three of you to an unsung actor who's putting a lot of mileage on the screen in this conversation. That's Eric Payne. That's in the Payne family, right? I want y'all to appreciate who you're on the show with tonight. But Elijah, you're lifting up something, and Eric, I have a background in theater too, right? Is that and one of the things that we all need to teach our community to appreciate is that the arts can empower, and the arts are a space of healing.
Yes.
Right. Theater arts are huge in that. Especially with young men as young as Mason. Mason, you didn't tell us what role you're playing. What role are you playing in the show tomorrow, son?
Well, the role I'm playing is of a boy called Timothy.
Okay.
And well, he is less fortunate than the other kids in his class. He doesn't have a lot of money, and his mom doesn't really get a lot of paychecks or doesn't make as much as maybe the other kids do. And he gets bullied because of his clothes, and maybe sometimes he's not able to shower.
And that's real stuff for a lot of our kids.
Oh yeah. You know, as you guys know, and probably found out in playing those roles and working on the project, you know, a lot of the times, as Brother Zaid said, it's therapeutic, you know, when you get to play these roles and kind of get it out. And, you know, sometimes you come across a role in something and you really identify with it because you identify with the character and the experience they had. And it helps you kind of to work through if you've had similar experiences. Happened to me in roles. If you've had similar experiences, kind of you can get it out, you know, and it works you in a very kind of, I found, a healing, therapeutic way. And that's something that as actors we're able to do, but also in the arts, it allows you to do it as well, you know. So it's really a great thing, the play that you're doing, and also one that addresses needs that people need to have addressed in their community and things that are going through. That's the best type of art you can have that helps people heal.
Now, although we're ending, nearing the end of the segment, I realize that this is a unique opportunity to have the kids ask Eric Payne a question. Eric Payne is a professional actor. He's worked with Spike Lee, and you know, I just can't have you here without the actors here asking Eric Payne just Any brief question on like advice or anything? I mean, he's worked with a lot of different directors. He's been in Hollywood. He's lived that life. Ask him a question.
I do have a question. One of the questions I wanted to ask was, when you first started, did you have like any mentors that help you get started in the business and gave you like any type of information to help you survive in the industry as a Black artist?
Yeah, well, I went to a historically Black college, Hampton, the great Hampton University, if I can put it out there. But so I had a number of teachers that had gone through the process, and I had one particular teacher that was an advisor for me that helped me along the way a lot. But once I got out in the world and tried to enter the profession of acting, there was a brother that I met. I did a play at the Theater of Universal Images. It's part of this. Remember that, right? Downtown. And I met a brother by the name of Jerome Preston Bates. He was from Newark as well, a little bit older than me. And he would just advise me about just how to go about the business, the work of getting pictures, and because I had no one, a lot of these larger schools.
Yes, sir.
A lot of these larger schools that people go to some of these white schools, NYU, Juilliard. I was coming from a small Black college and didn't have the same opportunities that those schools provide for their students. And I really didn't know what to do. I didn't know what the process was. And this brother kind of walked me through it, told me what I needed to do. I knew you needed to get pictures, but other than that, just the whole process of being an actor, the everyday purpose, the steps that you have to take to go out there and seek work. It's a lot easier. You have a lot more tools now that are available for this generation, for your guys' generation, because you can write and produce your own little films, and a lot of those people are getting your work seen on the internet and things like that. So you have a better way to express yourself and express your art. And the biggest advice I would give you is don't wait for someone to give you the opportunity.
I didn't say that.
Do it yourself. Do it yourself. And I learned that from Spike Lee. Spike, back in the day, in the very first film I did with him, he did a film called Joe's Bed-Stuy Barbershop. We Cut Heads. That was his thesis film.
That was the student thesis, right?
That's right. That's right.
And I actually met Spike doing a film that was called Messenger at the time. He came to see a play I was in about Black colleges. And he couldn't get a SAG waiver, Screen Actors Guild, to allow some of the actors in it, which was Giancarlo Esposito, Lawrence Fishburne, and Kadeem Hardison, and cast me in the role of the lead of this film. It was about a bicycle messenger who lost his mother, and his father ended up marrying a woman. Black family ended up marrying a white woman. It was autobiographical about Spike, actually. And we were rehearsing for 2 weeks. Unfortunately, the money fell through. Never did it, and he came up with a film called She's Gotta Have It. And the rest is history. That particular film at the time was called Messenger. He reworked it, did it years later. It became a film called Crooklyn, I believe. And that was the one about his father, it was autobiographical, but Delroy Lindo played his father. So Spike was someone at the time, he raised his own money to do She's Gotta Have It. Funny story. I asked him, because I didn't understand what it was to see a rough cut of a movie. And, I saw She's Gotta Have It. I'm not going to go into the content because we have a young person here, but I saw the rough cut. I didn't get it. I was like, so what? This happens in the movie. And I called him. I was like, what are you trying to say with the movie, Spike? And he said, well, I said, what do you want people to get out of it? He said, well, you get what you get out of it. I was okay. Because I heard he needed money. I was thinking about approaching my father about, maybe investing in the movie. And knowing, if you guys know how my father was, you couldn't come with just, you get what you get. You had to come with some real concrete thing. And I never asked him. That movie, She's Gotta Have It, came out and blew up and made tons of money for what Spike spent on the movie. But he did it himself, is my point. He raised the money, did it himself, and the rest is history, and his career took off. So
Yes, he did.
that's my advice, you guys. Don't wait for anybody. Do it yourself, you know, and the tools are available to you now. You got these phones, you can make your little films that way. And also plays are, you know, it's nothing like that. And I'm sure Lisa knows, the director knows, there's nothing like live theater where you're able to touch the audience and they're able to feel your vibe. Yeah, they're able to feel the energy. And that's the most touching thing for people. That's my advice for you guys.
You muted.
And one more question by one of the other actors.
My question is, so like, where did you start, and how did you like start getting into movies and stuff like that, and like build up your career?
I was doing a play, and Spike came to see the play. He came, actually, it was a play written by a brother that went to Howard. It was called Jonan, and it was about black colleges and these guys that were in a fraternity, and they played around a lot with each other. And the result was one of the characters, my character, ended up committing suicide because of issues that he had in his life. And Spike happened to come with the playwright's best friend, who turned out to be Ernest Dickerson. And Ernest and Spike were in NYU together. Turns out Ernest was like a cousin to me because his mother, Jackie Dickerson, lived next door to my aunt Roselle. And I used to see her at my grandmother's house all the time.
Eric.
Huh?
This play started in Roselle.
Right. See, there you go. See, it comes full circle. We're supposed to meet now, and I'm supposed to be giving you guys this advice. You know, you see how God works, right?
Yes,
Look
sir.
at God. So I started on the stage, and I met Spike. One thing led to the other. You know, God put you in the right place where He wants you to be. You know, and too many times I went off the path to try to make things happen on my own. So sometimes be still. You know, they say mark time a little bit. I've heard that, you know, in church. So sometimes you just got to mark time and wait for God to give you those marching orders. And if you listen a little bit, He'll put you in the right place. So if I wasn't doing that play at that time, I would have never met Spike, you know? So the play, what you're doing right now, is the right thing to do, because you're never going to know who's going to be in that audience. And that's going to make you a good actor too. Because if you can act when people are 12 feet in front of you, then you can act on camera and screen, because you can make somebody believe that while they're sitting right there looking at you. Are they really acting? Are they really into it? You're going to be a good actor.
And Jonathan, let me build on that. And Eric, I didn't start acting until I was in my late 30s. Right? And that was by accident. I was teaching actors their history. And the director of the program tricked me into getting on stage talking about Malcolm X. Right? She knew how to push my buttons. All right. But one day these kids had to perform in this big, beautiful arts center out in Queens. I can't think of the name of the space, but they only had a small audience, and they were like, I said, who are those people? I said, those people came to see you. So give them what they came for.
That's right.
You don't know how that's going to come back to you. Don't have step, don't have perform. They came to see you. So lift your art up like you own it, because it's how you share it that's going to make all the difference.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Absolutely. And you'll feel that energy coming back from the audience.
Well, yeah, can you guys repeat once again where the play is going to be and what time it's going to take place?
The play is going to be at Central High School. The doors open at 5:00 p.m. and the show time starts at 6:00 p.m.
That's going to be. You said when? Tomorrow?
It's going to be at 5:00 p.m.
Tomorrow. 5:00 tomorrow.
5:00 p.m. The doors open at 5:00 p.m. and the show time is at 6 p.m.
No times at 6. Curtains rise at 6. Right on.
Good. Well, listen, we want to thank you guys so much for coming through. We appreciate you. And you guys look like superstars already. I'm gonna
All
have
right.
to come
Yeah.
down, make sure I bring my
Right.
pad and get your autographs early.
Right.
Because I know you guys are gonna. I mean, I love the title of the of the play. I mean, it's definitely going to attract folks to come see it. So thank you guys so much for coming back on. I appreciate it. And of course, we wish you guys all the best. And if there's anything we can do, all you got to do is just reach out to us, And I love the way you guys talk about the play. I can hear the enthusiasm in your voice, and so I know that comes across on stage.
Thank you, and thank you for having us.
Thank you,
Yeah.
and shout
Good
out
luck
and thank
tomorrow.
you to Eric Payne for that was nice. I like that interaction, and I learned some stories as well. Those are great stories.
And also directing is no joke to Lisa Bell there. So, to you for putting it
In
all
charge,
together.
Queen. You in charge. Make sure they get it right.
That's right. That's right. It's a huge, huge endeavor. So
All right, sir. Thank you so much.
All Politics of Local is a teaching platform.
Yeah,
Good
absolutely,
share.
absolutely,
Good share.
absolutely. Well, thank you, thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Good luck.
Thank you. Good luck.
thank you.
Oh, and one last thing. Tomorrow at 6 o'clock, Central High School. Doors open at
Let's
5.
open at 5. Mm-hmm,
Yep.
mm-hmm.
All right.
F5.
All right. Cool. All right. Take care.
We'll get back in town in time.
Take care.
Awesome.
All
Awesome.
right.
Awesome. Good
And
stuff.
I want to do one more community shout out. There is an author, Anel Lopez. I'm sorry. Yes. There is an author, Anel Lopez, who has done an incredible collection of short stories called I'll Give You a Reason. I'm going to put that up right now. She is currently, and the event might be over, but tonight she was at Source of Knowledge. She was doing a national tour. She lives in New Orleans, and she is a former, and of course, this is always near and dear to me. She is a former debater for Eastside High School, and she has.
Go ahead, teacher man.
You said what?
So go ahead, teacher man. Give your plug.
Well, I
Please.
mean, she's great. She's a former debater for Eastside High School. I didn't have the honor of coaching her, but
Oh, okay.
we worked together. We worked together because we go on the same trips, stuff like that. Got to know her very well. She's brilliant, brilliant person. Has a lot of really good. She's Afro Latina. Has a lot of really good understanding of stories. She's actually one person who taught me how to teach or insights in teaching people who are at a high level when English is not their first language. Because I don't know if she remembers the story or not, but um, obviously very brilliant, but would have certain difficulty because sometimes her ideas were more advanced than their ability to language it, right? Like she was an English as a second language student. So from her coming to where she was and debating at Eastside and doing well at Eastside to being an accomplished award-winning novelist, right? She lives in New Orleans, where she publishes out of. The book that she is the book that she wrote, the collection of short stories is called I'll Give You a Reason. And it is one of those things that I'm highlighting. I'm glad she was at Source of Knowledge tonight. She was at a bookstore in DC the other day. She was up at Montclair last week. So I wanted to be there tonight, but I was doing the tribute here. So, but shout out. I hope the reading went very well. But I wanted to shout out one of Newark's own who's doing incredibly well, and
That
go
sounds like
buy
a
the
good,
book, go see them. Right.
that
So
sounds
that's
like
awesome.
a great story, Jonathan. I know some folks who have done some cutting edge work on that Afro Latin question. Right. That's a very contentious space that our folks who have Latinx background are not terribly comfortable talking about, and it's particularly uncomfortable for our folks who are subject to the denigration that African people face in that cultural context. It's a powerful discussion. So I wish that that daughter well. I know some folks I would love to introduce her to that are part of a whole new network. Not new. They have an organization called Red Mujeres that Diaspora Afro. Black
Okay.
from Boston to Buenos Aires, right? Been together over 30 years. 2 vice presidents came out of that space. S.P. Campbell out of Costa Rica and Francia Marquez out of Colombia. Francia is rough too. That's a rough little city, right? And I'm being honest because I noticed when you put up her credits that the book is on feminist press. So this kid's got some politics. I want to see what you got. Yes.
Yeah. Right. So she's so it's already won awards. It's already received accolades. I just want to do my part. I know that Tap Into covered it at Source of Knowledge. I just want to do my part to make sure that she gets heard. One of my favorite writers is a Dominican writer, Gino Diaz, who on that Afro-Latino question is very clear, right? Like he's very clear. And I think that becomes incredibly important in dealing with just the history, right? Like we have to understand that certain levels anti-blackness is worldwide, right? That the way in which white supremacy works is worldwide. It was a worldwide phenomenon and affected everybody, right? It affects everybody in different ways. And Henry Louis Gates did a really good documentary on the Dominican Republic and Haiti. Other countries too, Black and Latin America. The episode that he did on the Dominican Republic and Haiti was just fascinating, right? Like, and going to the depth in which race and the poison of white supremacy has just affected
30,000 Afro Dominicans, and then the way they did it in the DR, you black, if you Haitian, because there was a battle between the Haitians and what became the Dominican Republic. So if you was black, you was automatically Haitian, and you caught it. You would catch it in the DR, and he was brutal with that. 30,000 was a slaughter that he personally oversaw in the 20th century.
Who was this that personally?
Dictators of the Dominican Republic.
Who?
Trujillo up until like the 1960s, right?
Yeah, early 60s. That's right.
Right. So this history is rich, and especially in a city like Newark, I think that having a global understanding of it, having an understanding of what that means with respect to the diasporic nature of being African, what it means to be Afro-Latino, what it means to be Latino, how that's connected to Africa, how that's connected to white supremacy. I think these are really important questions, right? Like this is not something that just affects like, African American descendants of the American slave trade, but I think it affects everybody worldwide, right? So
absolutely.
So I always support I always support my Afro-Latino writers who are pushing, and who have a good understanding of who they are with respect to the world, which I think is always incredibly important. So big shout out to Anel Lopez, again, who's writing these stories that are so important and that are rooted in our community. Because many of these stories take place in Newark, in the Ironbound section where she grew up.
That's right. Iron Brown is getting blacker and browner by the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fair enough. And it's been for years, right?
That's
and it's
right.
been for years, right? Like Brazilian, Dominican, Ecuadorian, Black, right? Like as Black people have always been down there in one way or shape or form. And they're just, immigrant populations in the history of Newark is a rich thing. Philip Roth writes about it. When he writes about it, it's real interesting because like he's as a Jewish writer who grew up in the Weequahic section, right?
That's right.
In the Weequahic section.
I talked about the Jewish Y yesterday, right? On Chancellor that we used to.
Right. And so a brilliant writer, right? Like who recently passed away. But I love the way that Philip Roth writes about Newark. And then like right after that, because it's a lot of times it seems like he's shouting out a Mary Baraka, because it'd be like, he'd start to write about the Central Ward, and then he'd be like, or the South, or parts of the South Ward, or a Black population. Then he'd be like, but this I think is better for another writer.
They were part of the beat crew when they were quite young.
Right.
Louis was the brother out of that circle,
Right.
That's all of them on fire, but they were all in that beat writing generation.
In the village.
That's right.
I got a chance to interview Mr. Baraka.
He came uptown. He was down in the village as a part of that beat crew
right.
in the 50s, early 60s.
Right.
That's where that relationship really came together.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. Yep.
DJ Rhino, man. You know, I think that you are an essential part of this tribute night, man. Like, I think that you have, I think you have some unique things to talk about, right? We talk about our friend Congressman Payne. We have dedicated tonight to the Payne report, and we have had many different guests come on to give tribute and to really just examine different sides of the legacy, right? The legacy of him, the legacy of the Payne family, and its importance to the city of Newark. Talk to us, man.
And let me say before Rhino gets started, I appreciated your post, Rhino, about your relationship, with the congressman, man. Because you didn't just you had the same kind of relationship we had, except you had one that, he extended to you, man, that went a little further. And I think that your contribution tonight, man, is important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, well, first of all, like when the first thing I found out was that that he was related to close friends of mine. My brother Lance, we call him J. Rule. He was a graffiti writer. He was an artist.
That was our cousin.
Yeah, exactly. He Lance Robinson. That was my brother. That was my man. And him and his sister Lisa. I came up with them. You know what I'm saying? I grew up with them, and to find out that he was cousins of them, that was huge, and I was like, wow, you know what I mean? So it's it's a small world, But then, when we had the show back at the studio, and he would come through, we would always have our own side conversations about hip hop and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And he grew up in that. You know what I'm saying? He always talked about Rakim and Eric B. and stuff like that, man. He loved the song that they had in the ghetto. You know what I'm saying? When he was talking about no more props, I want property. You know what I mean? He always talked about Jay-Z, Streets is watching. If I shoot you, I'm brainless. If you shoot me, I'm famous. That whole thing. But now he was really into his hip hop, man. We always talked about hip hop, and we talked about house music back in the days. The clubs and stuff. We always talk about that kind of stuff too. So, he was a human being. He was a brother. He was somebody that was connected to the people that I knew. You know what I mean? So that was the connection I had with him. And then, to have the honor, man, for him asking me to be the DJ for the Congressional Black Caucus was huge for me. That was my biggest gig, you know what I mean, in my career, to do something like that. And then did it for like 3 years back to back, you know what I mean? So that was cool, man. But it's actually still, it hasn't sunk in all the way. You know what I'm saying? I'm still dealing with it. You know what I'm saying? I saw, I did see Lisa when I left the wake, and we spoke shortly about it. But and it was I was too emotional at that point. You know what I mean? So I couldn't stick around for too long. But yeah, so that's what it is.
Yeah. I think what's important, man, is that, Eric, I know man, that, we're going to miss our brother.
Right.
But
yeah.
We're going to push on, man, and we appreciate you coming through, man, and hanging out with us.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, man. Just so y'all know, he really appreciated y'all and having this opportunity, doing the radio show. I don't know. My mom had a radio show back in the day. Her name was Kay Thompson. She was on WLIB.
Yes. I worked for Kay Thompson I worked for Kay Thompson right out of college for a few months. It was a little freelance thing.
Right. And I'm wondering why you're looking familiar here. And it's full circle though, right? Our community is full circle about how we're doing it. I wanted to ask Rhino, I'm feeling like we might have met at a function in Montclair. There's this art gallery that this brother has over here in Montclair. A brother started an art gallery, and I met someone recently. I don't know if it was you that was talking about my cousin Lance was an artist. So it was.
I'm not sure, but it's possible, man.
Yeah,
It's possible.
yeah. And
I
so
met there recently.
yeah, and so Chop really appreciated the opportunity to come on, and a bigger thing was like y'all said, Ed, talking hip hop and hanging out after the show for a while, because he was trying to pride himself on being one of the older hip hop heads back in the day, because we come from the disco and house music generation a little bit, and him and my boy Bill Nunn, Radio Raheem, both would talk about their old hip hop heads. Bill Nunn was a little bit older than us, so I guess he had the title of being the oldest hip hop fan when it first came out. But Chop definitely, and he was into the Lords too, and part of his love for the Lords was that they were from Newark, a Newark hip hop group, as well as Redman, and really where we come from, man, the bricks. Hey, listen, my family, we moved to Maplewood after the uprising, but I was always on Bach Avenue, always back in the old neighborhood, and even growing up where I grew up in Maplewood and hearing the other people talk about Newark in a condescending way, I had to represent. I had to represent, let them know, y'all don't know what you're talking about. The city of my birth is strong, and it's strong people there, proud people.
That's right.
And y'all remember, you little older as I, you might remember the South Ward back in the day, man. It was popping off when my mom had the dance studio.
That's right.
In the 70s and the late 60s,
That's right.
Bergen Avenue.
Bergen Avenue was busy. It was
Yes,
full,
sir.
very black.
Yes, sir.
That's right.
And prosperous. And my mother had the dance studio before that at the Leaguers building back in the day. Mrs.
It's
Bird.
funny. It's like I never made the connection between K. Thompson Payne and the Paynes, right? Mom was amazing, very cool person.
Yeah.
Very, very good mentor, very professional. Just really looked out. One of the people who would look out for
radio pioneer
for other people. So
yeah.
I appreciated her a lot.
Reverend Al used to come on there a lot when we first started him, and doing a number of things on there that were important to the Black community at the time, because we didn't really have talk radio. LIB was one of the first,
right?
To answer the talk radio that the other folks had.
That's
trying to denigrate our community, and it was those days. Dr. Ben would come on the regular, Dr. Clark, Van Sertimer,
Ralph Cooper interviewing Malcolm X.
Yes, sir.
It's all a matter of record.
Yes.
Yep. I think she taught me how to do a press release.
Really?
It was a long time ago. I was right out of college.
You were taught. You had a good teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think she taught me how to do a press release, some other stuff, and just freelance stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I'm just reacting because I didn't make that connection before, and I should have, because I believe she talked about how proud she was of her son, who was an actor and working with Spike Lee, and I should have made that. Because we're talking about 25 years ago, me going back, and all that's coming back right now.
Yeah.
So wow, it's a small world kind of thing. So good family. Appreciate you, man.
Appreciate y'all 100%, man, that we're able to carry on the history and tell the story. Like Zaid, you're saying, tell the history. People need to know the history of what went down, and how our people evolved and did the things in this city, in the city of our birth, right? The uprising, and when you hear my father and people talk about how that stuff jumped off back in the day, people were tired. Right. That generation, can you imagine that generation? My father tell me that his grandfather, he was downtown taking part in a protest, and my great-grandfather was getting off the bus, and he was saying, Billy, what do you, because the older folks didn't want the younger folks to be so much protesting back then and rabble-rousing and making waves, but they got tired of that. They got tired of it, just like our generation took the baton. They got tired of that, and even us younger, when I learned about Amiri Baraka being my father's friend, as an actor, that's what inspired me, that this Black man from the town that I was born made it happen, because I just knew him for his plays and things. Right. And I felt some kind of way, some kind of inspiration that this man you know, he made it from the same town that I'm from. So I
Right.
could come out here and do some things.
That's right.
You know?
That's right.
And so it's a continuum, you know? And the older we get, and the older I've gotten, I understand legacy, man. I come home and people talk about the Payne legacy, and we were just watching our parents and our fathers do their thing in the community and be active, you know. And you guys know my dad was the hard one, and my uncle was, you know, they say he was just the nice guy. My father was, and that was kind of my job with my cousin, and watch his back.
Yep.
You know?
That's
And you know, I'm the one like, hey, keep it on wax, like they say.
right. That's right. That's right.
You know, don't get it twisted, because you know I'm a little bit heated with it when certain things, but you know, sometimes we got to be that way. We got to show people, y'all want to come up here and act crazy, okay? It's not happening, you know. So you know, I mean, being with y'all, y'all gonna get me riled up, man. And
it is in Mikey and all, but it is a safe space for that.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that it is, man.
You know, me, Rhino, and knowing that you're experienced with my cousin Lance, you know that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the fam and what he was doing with his thing and the art, you know.
Yeah, man. He had a lot of deep messages, man.
Mm-hmm.
He just, and he was direct, man. The thing about Lance was he was just so direct with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He didn't play, man. But that's what we all loved about him. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
He was straight to the point with everything, man.
You know, that's what our people want to see, man. They want to see us be direct.
Yeah.
You know, when I was coming up, you know, I was identifying with what Mr. Baraka was talking about.
Right.
You know, nation time. That's what time it is.
Yeah.
So,
you know,
that's the story I was trying to tell. Just bringing this Malcolm size just a little minute, right? When I did Who Killed Malcolm X. That's the story I was trying to tell to my goofy young friends who made that film. They totally didn't know what to do with that. Right? The story of Malcolm in Newark is not just
what
happened to him at the Autobahn.
Right.
Impact of his life on our struggle and a myriad and that whole moment when the Black Power movement was, Newark was the epicenter of Black Power on Malcolm's shoulders after Malcolm's assassination by way of a myriad in that generation. That's what I was trying to tell.
Yep.
They didn't know they just didn't know what to do with that, unfortunately. We got to make the film ourselves.
That's right.
And finally, to Rhino's point, let us remember our brother Pastor Brian Ali and the Congressman. Right, he brought Rhino down for the Congressional Black Caucus. Those weekend affairs when they had to find a space for their behinds to get loose with their stiff selves. Right.
Easy.
But the Congressman brought Pastor Ali, a brother who survived from Hillside, New Jersey, who survived the streets addiction, all of that stuff, and became one of the most beloved ministers in our streets. The only minister with us on the street when we were shutting streets down, brought him to Washington, to the House, the Capitol, to lead the whole entire Congress in prayer. That was huge.
And I know that, you know, this has been a really good program. I know it's 9:07 right now, and you know, I just want to just do the closing, right? But in closing though, I think Ed and I talked about this before. We're going to be doing the Payne report up until the November election, because we know that very important to Congressman Payne was this election, right? He talked about it at great length. He talked about Biden. He talked about those relationships. And so we're going to be exploring that, and we're going to be exploring a lot of the issues he talked about each month up into November, because we think that, you know, the issues that he was raising, the stuff that he was pushing, the moment that we're in, that people were, I don't think we're really talking about it yet. I think that he was very, very aware of that, right? Like the dangerous moment that we're in, a very dangerous moment that we're in.
That's right.
I think that your uncle would talk about and was very aware, a congressman understood, and would talk about who he was in Congress with and what that meant. And his father before him said the same thing, even on this show, when he talked about, and Ed, remember that when he talked about the Tea Party, right?
Yep.
And what they were, which is the precursor to a lot of these movements. So
Oh yeah.
we're going to continue these conversations, inviting different people on to have different aspects, to highlight different aspects of the legacy and of our brother. So I want to thank all of our guests that came on tonight. Want to thank you, Eric, for coming up and spending time with us on this, right? Like in adding to the stories in each of these segments. I want to thank the mayor, Mayor Ras Baraka, for coming on. Want to thank LeRoy Jones, for coming on, right? Like and giving these tributes, LaMonica, McIver, Patrick Council, the different people in politics, his friends, Mike Barbee, for coming on, right? Like the different people who have different aspects of what it means to be political, what it means to have an organization, why those things are important, right? Like I think that tonight was a really good history of all of it. So thanks all of our guests that
Yes,
came
sir.
on.
Yes, sir.
And we also want to thank all the other folks who, couldn't make it. John, like Roundtree, like Duke,
Right.
you know what I mean, who was on the schedule, but we'll look to get them on the next Payne report.
Right.
Next right to have them come on. So and Angela Garretson, all of them.
Right.
We'll look to
Right.
bring them on, and as we continue to not let one of the things that the Congressman and I talked about, trying to get the young folks in our community to get them engaged in this election that's coming up. So we're gonna keep that going in his name as we continue to talk about it up until the November election. So we're gonna say that the Payne report will continue here. Right, every month, first of the month with the Payne report. And Eric, you welcome to come and hang out with us, man, as we continue to do this every month, man. You're welcome to come through, man. We love having you on, and as you said, man, you were there rocking with him to make sure he was safe. We'd love to have you on, making sure we continue to keep his spirit on, man, and we're able to make sure we talk about this all important election in a way that he would be proud of us for making sure that that folks understood that we've got to do all we can to make sure that fascism doesn't win.
Right. I had a podcast that I was doing with my mother called K Thompson Live on Blogspot, and just after wanted to continue that before she passed to do that and give her that fulfillment. So we were kind of doing it. So I definitely would like to come on and continue with you brothers. You ask a Payne to start talking politics and power, especially with some people who have the same roots that I got where we all started from. I'm all in it, because we need to make the same plans that the other people are making. And just we touching on the iceberg, but I like the discussion with brothers that as we can talk about these type of topics that we need to be talking about for our people. So I'll be back.
There it is, brother. We'll see you next month, man. Every first of the month is 6 to 7, brothers. The Payne report, brother.
That's right.
So you got a date, brother. We got you plugged in now, brother.
Yeah, and we talked about it before, Ed. And John. So I'm with it. I'm with it, and I'm coming to the Malcolm X reading too, Zayed. So
all right. More than welcome. We got to lift you up.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well,
we would love to have you there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. All right, beloved.
Until next week,
Rhino.
Everybody be safe. All politics are local. America's number one political hip hop talk show.
All right. Love you, Eric.
I love you all too.
Love to the family.
Love you back.